Jonathan, what do you feel about the Boston Uprising pick for both of these people as we say goodbye to the desk? We're not going to give them a chance to respond. What do you think?
All right, yeah. I mean, I think they have weak mental. I think that's what it comes down to. I wouldn't have swapped a single
Boston or
thing,
the desk members?
No, the desk members. Hold on. I dropped something right here. I think it's weak mental from the desk members for swapping to the Boston Uprising. They don't have any belief, of course, in the Florida Mayhem pick. Don't have any reason behind it. So, you know, I think it's a weak mental making a last second change there.
Well, we're about to kick it off. It's the Boston Uprising against the Florida Mayhem. Everybody's anticipating it to be a good game because both of these teams are trying to get out of that middle of the pack where they've been languishing a little. And to me, Jonathan, it's Florida who are most unusual to be in this position. The expectations for this team were much higher coming into the season.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, you know, early on in the season. I think that the Florida Mayhem, they were making a switch with OG coming into that main tank position instead of Fate. How's that going to affect the shot calling? How's that going to affect your versatility? Because OG, he plays the Winston really well, right? But apart from that, you know, he needs to make an effort to make those big plays on the Reinhardt. His Orisa coordination hasn't been that top tier in the past, of course. So it's a big change, and so far, it feels like they haven't really nailed the teamwork so far.
Well, let's see how they do as they go up against their opposition, the Boston Uprising, and the first team we're going to take a look at. And the starting lineup is always interesting with these guys because you get to kind of see whether you get the Australian star player of Punk or the full Korean lineup. You see what I did there, Jonathan? I made sure that I got the country correct because he is the only non-Korean player that's going to be in this match. And so I better make sure that I don't maliciously allocate his place of residence to New Zealand.
Oh,
instead,
don't worry about that accident. No, don't worry about that anymore because we just watched the LA Gladiators and the Paris Eternal, and Costa behind the scenes, he messed up only God, thinking he was from Sweden and not Norway. So, I mean, at that point, it's like, it's equal, you know? It's a one-on-one.
You're just out again. You're just out again.
No, I mean, you know, I'm a Swede. You know, I took that personally, so...
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Well, let's take a look at the Florida Mayhem here. Their starting lineup as well. I think this team, like you said, Jonathan, they've been looking for those higher aspirations across this tournament. To me, my eyes are focused on Yaki, because yesterday we saw that Aspire was able to take it to Yaki in the 1v1 and put up good Tracer performances as well. Do you get the feeling like I do that Yaki is going to not really have that same level of pressure in this match in terms of having a head-to-head player?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Boston Uprising, they're still trying to figure out how it's going to fit into that Tracer role. Overall, we saw Colorex in the lineup as well. So Yaki, he might have a bit of a field day in this matchup. I'm excited to see BQB as well. You know, we saw Checkmate coming out yesterday for the Florida Mayhem on the 2 control maps. And now BQB is in the lineup. How is that going to affect your compositions? What are you going to pull out here against the Boston Uprising? Are we going to see less of that Echo and Tracer and instead try to integrate BQB in this long hit scan play here? It's going to be these two teams trying to figure out, I think, what their playstyle is going to look like for the rest of the Summer Showdown.
Well, you tell me, if we're going into Nepal, are you expecting stuff like May McCree coming out here from Florida, or are they going to be going with more Winston-based compositions where BQB might be on? I mean, he could play the McCree, but or the Ash or something. What's your expectation as we head into this first match?
Well, I mean, we have seen quite a lot of Reinhardt compositions on Nepal so far in the Summer Showdown, right? The Boston Uprising, they have stand 1 in the lineup. I can see them pull that out. And how are Florida Mayhem going to react to that? I think OG, personally, feels very comfortable playing the Winston. And I think that is what the Florida Mayhem would like to perhaps cater to most of the time. But if you're going into Sanctum, how are you really going to pull that out if the Boston Uprising come out with the Reinhardt composition straight off? So stand 1 is actually going to be on the Winston. So forget that. And OG is on the Reinhardt. I mean, is that a caster curse or what? Okay, we say we're going to win. That makes more sense.
Well, yeah, and I mean, the comps are not locked in just yet as well. I think that we might get some alterations as we head out the door, because this does not look like a normal composition that Boston would be running with. I'm excited for this game. It should be a close one. I didn't think the first game of the day would be particularly close, and it did end up going all the way to 5-2. No one would be surprised, I think, if these two teams went the distance. And it's Stan1 rolling out here on the Rhine, going up against OG. They're going for the Florida Mayhem, Winston, D.Va, Lucio, Moira composition here. All guns blazing as they move forward into the first fight, and it's Stan1 who immediately takes down OG, using his hammer to whack him into the pit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough matchup, right? Because you're playing this very fast Lucio Moira composition, but you're just walking into a May wall. You're walking into a Reinhardt hammer. it's not really the matchup you want to see if you're the Florida Mayhem. Can they out-navigate the Boston Uprising here? They will be a bit slower because they're playing that Reinhardt composition, a bit more immobile. They have the Symmetra teleporter, so they can go back and forth between the points. But the Florida Mayhem here, they just want to get those BKB hacks going. They want to out-rotate their opponents because they have that Moira. They want to engage fast around the point.
Gangnam is only up to 50% of his coalescence at this point. It feels sluggish compared to the June Joust meta, where people were getting up in 30 seconds, 40 seconds at times. But it looks like the Florida Mayhem are looking to engage. 75% on BQB's EMP as well, as he gets that hack off. But he's forced out of the fight. Here's Myeonbong, pushing down his Amp Matrix into the floor to back the rest off. OG just frozen up for a moment. He's off the side again! That's the second time that OG is into the drink, as Faith collects another kill with a boot, this time not an environmental, onto Slime. It's just not working for Florida, and they've used their coal as well, Johnny.
I mean, this is desperation at this point from the Florida Mayhem. We're 45% inside, Joe, and it's looking like they're struggling with this composition. The Boston Uprising, though, you have to give them credit, right? Because the Florida Mayhem, they're trying to out-rotate their opponents, they're trying to dive in just like this. But the Boston Uprising, they're applying pressure, right? Punk here, downs BKB early into the fight, you're at a man advantage for the Boston Uprising, you peel back, utilize the Symmetra damage, utilize the icicles from Mei to poke down your opponents. They're doing a good job of not letting Florida Mayhem really have their way here playing the dive composition.
And they're also being so proactive. Look at that Blizzard in first before BQB could come back with his EMP in the fight. And OG once more falls. This time he knocks someone else off the side. I'm 37 going. If someone had a bingo card for eliminations in this match, everyone would be eating breadsticks. But Boston Uprising continue their dominance so far. BQB has yet to be able to get off one of these EMPs. Here it goes, catches only on the stand one, and Faith immediately responds with that sound barrier. Boston Uprising still in the driver's seat, but the Florida Mayhem looking to flip the point. And Yaki with a crucial little teleport to the back. Oh, that's beautiful. Taking down I'm 37 and Myeonbong. There we go, that's a response.
He was thinking about the teabag, just for like a second, the tactical crouch, but he just decided for one solid crouch, and that's about it.
Okay, just the single bag. I like
the single, yeah. It was a long drawn out one.
Boston have made some changes here. Faith moving over to Brig, and then we've got Valentine swapping to Torbjorn as well. Incredibly tanky composition, but they're going up against double support ultimate here as well from the Florida Mayhem. You want to see them engage with Cole here, Jonathan?
Yeah, the Florida Mayhem, they probably have to push the tempo, right? The Boston Uprising, though, I think they could take their time, try to bait out some ultimate coalescence come out from Gangnam Jin, already applying the pressure, but you can see the Boston Uprising. They're just trying to stay alive, really. They don't want to have anything to do with it.
Gangnam Jin, he manages to collect two objects as he takes down the turret and the lamp, but he gets shattered in return. Slime, though, thankfully, has got the sound barrier onto them, so the Florida Mayhem, they're staying alive somewhat, but OG, he's got an impossible task here. A Primal Rage into an Amp Matrix, and two players dead already. Thankfully, Slime there with the boot, that's good for them, but the Boston Uprising have all the control over this map. OG comes back in, but he's just going to get shredded. The turret is the one that gets the final elimination there, but a huge amount of damage from Myeonbong. Overall, Florida, they look like they're dropping, but the Boston Uprising are not getting the cleanest engagement.
No, you have to cap this point, and they finally do. 95% and taking here the Florida Mayhem, trying to stay alive for one last engagement. BKB goes down with the EMP! That's huge! And Yaki!
Valentine! The turret is the MVP of this fight. Not only did it take down OG, but it gets both of the DPS players for the Florida Mayhem with both of their ultimates online. The overtime wick is burning, as the legends have said before, and Boston Uprising have everybody alive. Just for good measure, Valentine, not a chance. 2 more kills with the turret. He's AFK. He could apply a script in terms of how he's playing right now. He's not using his gun. That's incredible scenes.
We need to go back to the bingo card here, right? Like, if the Boston Uprising had a bingo card, and the turret killing both the enemy DPS, if that was about it, I mean, instead of breadsticks, can we get like Boston Uprising clam chowder bread go here?
Yeah, that'd be pretty good. Okay.
That'd be a treat.
It's a little more messy to try and hand out free samples of clam chowder, I think.
No, but they have it everywhere in Massachusetts, no?
Yeah.
Like,
what, you just
big pots of clam chowder, and you know,
head down to your local Boston Uprising watch party with a straw, and you're allowed some clam chowder from the communal pot.
There are pieces of seafood there. How are you going to get like the shrimp up and stuff?
I don't know. A very big straw like boba, maybe. Okay, heading into the next round, it's the same game plan from the Florida Mayhem. They're using that Moira Lucio composition, and Valentine is playing the Junkrat, so an incredibly turtley version of what they were running in the previous round. And it just never quite worked out for Florida. Who's the dive target here that Florida want to initiate on, Jonathan?
I mean, Junkrat, I think, is the go-to here. They're already going in with the Reaper, pushing in here. They actually got point control here, so now if you're the Boston Uprising, you're struggling. Slime picks off Valentine finally. And I mean, the Boston Uprising, they're crumbling here, yeah. That was a great engagement by the Florida Mayhem. They're able to surround the Boston Uprising, aggressing both across the points, but also above them, dropping down, right? Yaki getting the effectiveness of the Reaper here, so see if they can keep this up rest of the round here.
Good first engagement, like you said, from the Florida Mayhem. And that's incredibly unusual. But the Florida Mayhem yesterday, when they played against the Toronto Defiant, so many of these control maps and control rounds came down to that first team fight of whether Florida could get a snowball going and had that kind of feel for how they wanted to initiate team fights. Boston have gone for a wholesale change, not wholesale, but they've changed up 3 of their players as well. So Valentine and 37 and Faith moving over to an incredibly tanky version. This is how they closed out on the previous round of Sanctum. But OG's got some business to say. That turret, it just keeps on going. Is it going to be able to collect another kill? No way, surely not.
I mean, this is unbelievable. The Coalescence comes out from Gangnam Jin. They need this one to turn the fight. The Florida Mayhem Gargoyle picks off Valentine, and now you're dealing with a man advantage. It's just too hard to get out of this choke if you're the Boston Uprising. You need that damage from the Torbjorn to help you out with the turret. And the Florida Mayhem, they just keep pushing. They're smelling blood in the waters. Stad1 gets a nice charge on the Slime as well. Okay, you find 2 picks. Ooh. How did tables turn?
Yeah, what a punish for the overextension from the Florida Mayhem. Something they were doing a little bit yesterday when it came to Ilios. There's a shatter, lands down on Gangnam Jin. I'm not sure he even realized he was going to catch the Moira for the Florida Mayhem, but he'll take those, as you say. And BQB has yet to be able to use one of these EMPs properly, honestly. There was an opportunity there if Boston had come back in to use it, but Florida were already 2 men down, so BQB decides he's going to hold on to it, use it for the next engagement.
Yeah, but that's fine, though. I mean, the Florida Mayhem here, they're looking at 70% so far on the timer, and BQB has his EMP. You really want to get value, and he's walking around the point, trying to find an angle, scouting out here, puts down the pass locator. But it's tough, right? Because the Florida Mayhem, they have to force the Boston Uprising down. Great EMP comes in. Oh, and hits 3, actually. And the armor is blocking all the damage. Yaki pulls out the Death Blossom as well with the Slime Sound Barrier. And they get 2 picks here, but can they keep this going, or are Boston Uprising going to turn this once more?
Well, without the Reaper and without the Reinhardt, I think that would be a very tall task. Punk also drops in the midst of that. Yaki using his Wraith form to avoid the self-destruct. No chance of turning this around, and the Florida Mayhem, they're going to be able to cap it up. Make sure you deal with that Valentine turret. Good work, Yaki. That thing has done atrocities in the past. Absolute atrocities. For the Boston Uprising, though, they used a lot of ultimates to try and hold on to that. The initial EMP didn't even catch Myeonbong, but still, the Florida Mayhem, they roll their way through. 15% remaining.
Yeah, it's the last team fight here. Stan1 needs to build up this Earth Shatter to hit a big one. OG, though, with this Primal Rage, this could be huge. And Yaki, he's on the flank on the Reaper as well.
The Florida Mayhem, they're initiating immediately too. Gangnam Jin with the Coalescence, burning them down. Stan1 and Valentine, they fall so early on, and this has been a complete role reversal. The Florida Mayhem and the Boston Uprising, whoever's in the driver's seat, whoever is being proactive, that seems to be the team that's getting value in these team fights. This round could not have been more different to the previous.
Oh yeah, but that's sort of what you expect on Nepal, right? I mean, we see the Florida Mayhem here, great engages on Village. But the Boston Uprising, they won Sanctum, right? That's a slower map. They're playing the slower composition, way more armor to deal with on that side. So now we go to Shrine. And this is a bit of a coin flip, right? You can get away playing the slower compositions with the Brigitte armor, with the Reinhardt, if you really want to. And you also can go for these sick engages. We see Gangnam Jin here going to pop this Coalescence early on in the fight. And I mean, they're just pushing very aggressively. This is what we want to see from the Florida Mayhem. This is when they shine the most. Getting 2 picks onto Valentine and Stan1 here. So great play by the Florida Mayhem. If they can keep this up here, I wouldn't be surprised to see BQB hit some nice EMPs and then getting away with the ball.
So far, that first fight has been instrumental. Boston Uprising come out with, again, a very tanky comp, but this time at the beginning. Faith starting on Brigitte. Valentine also starting on Torbjorn. See whether they're able to get value out of this. Florida Mayhem sizing them up at the moment, looking to get BQB in a decent position behind them. hack onto somebody here, onto Punk or Stan1 would be a great way of initiating, but they're just going in wholesale right at the beginning, trying to focus it down. There's the hack onto Punk. See if you can isolate Stan1 now that he doesn't have the defense matrix available. But instead, it's OG who ends up falling. They may have played their hand just a little too early there, Florida, without the setup required. And this fight, even though Boston, or rather because Boston have taken the point, they now have much better positions for the cleanup.
Yeah, this is going to be rough. I get the idea of what the Florida Mayhem are trying to do, right? They want to play on the point, they can utilize the pillar for, you know, reducing the line of sight for the Boston Uprising. But at the same time, they're sort of playing into the composition of the Boston Uprising, because Boston, they're happy to just be in a stack, playing together, utilizing the McCree and the Torbjorn as well to have this big damage output in front of you. So the Florida Mayhem, I'd like to see them go a bit more aggressive. You have the Coalescence up now on the side of Gang Engine. Maybe you can get a hack off on the Punk or something like that, and play a bit faster. Get into the back line of the Boston Uprising.
Absolutely brutal double support ultimates here, and I'm37 utilizing his Deadeye through the Amp Matrix to try and zone them away. That stopped Gan Namjin getting good value out of his ultimate, and BQB is still 10% away from that EMP. It's a slight disengage, but oh no, BQB caught by that Fire Strike at 90%. That was the major tool that Florida were banking on to get them back into this fight, and now disastrous for Florida Mayhem. Unless they can wait for BQB to get back in, but Stan1 is not going to give them the time nor the place. He lays down the shatter, and that is going to be it. 65% for Boston.
Yeah, and the timer keeps ticking as well. Stan1 laying down the hammer. Solid earth shatters from him so far. You know, when you're playing against these dive compositions, it's hard to find targets realistically. Moira's going to be far away. Winston Bubble is going to drop a lot of it. So you sort of have to settle with a single D.Va pick. Maybe, you know, you hit the Reaper or the Winston. But so far, Stan1, he's finding value here, despite not hitting these 5 or 6 man shatters.
See Valentine's turret off on the angle there. 37 getting pressured really hard. There's the EMP. That stops the Batiste ultimate, or the Batiste Immortality field rather, from having too much value. But Punk has hit a ridiculous ult in the middle of that. The self-destruct used to peel there. All of Boston anticipating the fight before it had even happened. And this just looks disastrous for Florida. Once again, the first team fight ends up deciding the whole round based on that momentum, based on Boston being able to be the proactive team, or even like in this final team fight. Incredible with the reactions, and it's all just cleanup from this way out. Perhaps the desk knew better, or perhaps some portions of the desk knew better, because it's Boston who are taking the first map.
Let's not talk about it, shall we? I mean, let's just enjoy the Boston Uprising's win here. You know, solid performance by them, playing the slower composition. They sort of knew the weaknesses of the Florida Mayhem. Haven't really figured out the dive composition so far in the Summer Showdown. And I feel like the Boston Uprising really impressing here, knowing their strengths, playing around Stan1's shatters, hitting big ones throughout the entire game. So, like what I'm seeing from the Boston Uprising so far on the first map.
Impressive scenes to begin with, and that's got some good momentum. That's the second time that the Florida Mayhem have lost that opening control map. They did yesterday as well. We'll see whether they can bounce back from this. We've seen magic happen already today with that ridiculous reverse sweep. It's not quite on the cards yet. Catch it when we come back.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest and fastest 5G network. Set your sights on the competition with T-Mobile. The Overwatch League is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of the Overwatch League, and by IBM, the official cloud and AI partner of the Overwatch League.
What are you guys doing? We have a game right now. We have to go. Come on, come on. Come on, Checkmate. Out of set. We gotta go. Come on. Come on.
스윙 팀님.
We got a game now. Wake up, Yaki. Okay, gargoyle. Just gargoyle. Just gargoyle. Gargoyle? Gargoyle. Have you been in here practicing this whole time? Okay, come on. We gotta go. Let's go. Okay, get in formation, everybody.
Well, here's that star player from the Florida Mayhem that I think they're going to need to step up in this game, Jonathan. It's 1-0, and the Boston Uprising are the team in the lead. What can Yaki do here? He's been so fantastic in the main melee, but to me, it feels like this guy should be the person that they're relying on.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, you can discuss whether you want to see BQB in the lineup or if you want to see Checkmate for a more aggressive approach, but Yaki is going to be that consistent starter for the Florida Mayhem. His Echo and his Tracer has been fantastic so far this season. And he's really the one who's able to turn this matchup on its head, I feel like. The Boston Uprising, they favor the slower compositions on Nepal in map 1. And now Yaki, he can be the one changing the pace of the Florida Mayhem. Do you want to play a bit slower with BQB? Do you want to slow things down? Or do you want to be the aggressor? Do you actually want to play fast? And that's where he can pull out the Echo and be a big game changer for the Florida Mayhem. Now we're going to King's Row. So it's going to be a difficult matchup for the Florida Mayhem here if they want to play at pace, because Boston Uprising, they're the ones favoring these Reinhardt composition. But maybe Yaki, he has something up his sleeve, you know? You never know what the Magician is going to pull out.
When we're talking about King's Row, Jonathan, and you know as a team that you're more inclined to play those Winston-based compositions rather than the Boston Uprising, who you're looking at here, who unfortunately had a speed run set against them with the Paris Eternal back in 2020. But if you're looking at King's Row and you're thinking, okay, we want to avoid being on the map leaderboard presented by Xfinity. We want to actually have a decent performance here. And you know that your opponent plays a lot of Rhine compositions. What have you got in the strat book if you're the Florida Mayhem? Do you try and match them on the Rhine? Are you going to try and play some like Sombra Doom stuff like the Gladiators were going for? What do you think is Florida's best chance here?
Yeah, I think the Sombra Doomfist is a good shout, honestly. If you want to play the Winston here, you have to sort of navigate around the map, because usually, if you're playing the Reinhardt on the side of Boston Uprising, you're sort of stuck on the objective, right? Because you have to play these street phases and you have to sit on the cart, maybe push forward a little bit. But Florida Mayhem, if you play these mobile heroes, you can actually flank around on the high ground, set up these surroundings more effectively, and make sure you get really good engagement. So it's all about team synergy, really. Making sure that you as a team, you know what the win condition are, you know what the setup is going to look like, and you know who you're going to be diving on top of. So This is a bit of a test for the Florida Mayhem. Now they're starting off on defense actually, so they'll be the ones to have to play a bit more straightforward and set up the defenses accordingly. But it's all about surrounding your opponent, because Boston Uprising, they're going to go for the stand one Reinhardt play, they're going to play the Lucio and the Baptiste, and they're going, or never mind that, Faith swaps over to the Brigitte and the Torb. Oh, so they're just swapping up to the usual slow composition we saw them play on Nepal. They're comfortable playing this, they're up 1-0. They challenge the Florida Mayhem to actually beat them playing this composition.
Yeah, good idea, I think. But immediately, I'm37 gets blasted down there. A great dive initiated by OG, but followed up on by BQB, who is already at 50% basically to his EMP. That is massive, considering we're only 30 seconds into the round, and there hasn't even really been a proper team fight occurring. That's got to put himself in an advantage. But now the pressure becomes on a little bit more onto the Boston Uprising. They've got to navigate through there without losing players like that again. And Florida, like you said, Jonathan, they are just getting up and around them. That is a big problem, yeah.
Yeah, and you want to build this Nano boost. Gangnam Jin is at 90% here. He's going to Nano in OG. BQB is going to look for a hack. He's staying back right now, getting a heal. But this is all about Florida Mayhem building up these ultimates and then going fast when they have an advantage.
Oh, there it is. Now, you do normally expect the Nano Boost to go into OG, but instead, he's left out to dry, and all of the pressure is put on Yaki. They put all their eggs in one basket, and unfortunately, that is just not going to work. Perhaps a bit of a mistake there from Gangnam Jin. When everybody is diving in all on top of each other, it can be a little difficult to land the correct nano target, but that did not work.
Yeah, so Boston Uprising, they're going to cap this point A, but let's talk about that for a second. I don't think the Florida Mayhem are actually going to go for this. No, they're staying back. So let's talk about this, because we have seen an influx of Nano Boost on top of Echoes to make that big play. But I feel like in that scenario, Sideshow, you want to Nano Boost the OG on the Winston to give that survivability, because the longer you can sustain your tanks, the more time your DPS has to work with. That's how I feel.
For sure. Yeah, that would be the usual way around it too. The Florida Mayhem now potentially set up to go for some kind of EMP engage. I can see BQB working his way towards the back lines. This archway is normally an incredibly defensible location. I can see BQB running around in the back, wondering whether to go for something. Here's a Deadeye to try and make some space for the Boston Uprising. They've already popped their rally as well, so this is difficult now to try and use an EMP. It's popped anyway, but that immortality field from Yunbong, it's fantastic. It negates all of the problems that they would have had with the EMP and the Bionade anyway. That rally armor as well, so difficult to chunk through, and you're seeing the advantages here of this turtley composition. Okay, they're not taking much space and they can't actually work the cart forwards, but they're surviving at least.
And this is tough for the Florida Mayhem. They're going to see Yaki go into this Reinhardt. This is where we've seen Yaki pull off magic before, but he already gets pulled out of the Reinhardt form. Back on the Echo he goes. It might not be Jake, because I can't rap like him, but it would have been an epic Reinhardt play there if you're going to get some ultimate charge in the choke point here on King's Row. Valentine gets the pick onto OG, and they're going to take Punk out of his mech right there. So the Florida Mayhem, they're still holding this choke point, but they've invested 6 ultimates here throughout a couple of minutes. They get the job done, it seems like, but it's been a tough slobber knocker of a fight in this choke point right here.
The advantage, though, is that the Boston Uprising can't really close out the fight, and they've just been stuck. Even though they're staying alive, they are really not making any progress with the objective. So the Florida Mayhem, even if they're theoretically losing the team fight, they're fine. They're burning the clock down at this point. And Yaki's got another duplicate. They're set up for another duplicate and EMP there. And already the Bionade forces out the immortality field on the other side for the Boston Uprising. They're barely holding on. Yaki once again with another duplicate. And this time the Nano Boost, instead of being applied to the Echo, it goes onto OG. Helps him survive a little bit, but he still has to back off. In all of this time, though, in all of these team fights,
The EMP got cancelled! The EMP got cancelled! Oh, that's really bad for the Florida Mayhem.
Well, that is going to start the momentum forwards for Boston.
Yeah, I mean, the Boston Uprising, as you said, it took a long time because the Florida Mayhem, they just kept charging these ultimates and making sure they got some kind of value out of it. But this is what you have to do if you're the Boston Uprising. I don't think you can necessarily be too sad about the time you really spent getting through that choke point, because you want Florida Mayhem to make these mistakes. You want to force some unforced errors yourself. Now, the Florida Mayhem, they have this rally coming up. They have a Primal Rage and a Self-Destruct. So it's really all about forcing the Florida Mayhem to use these ultimates, have them not get any value, and then you'll win over time.
Well, that second part of the discussion, having them get no value, could be a little difficult. That's what I'm37 is there for. Deadeye popped, that forces the rest of Florida back. But there could be a re-engage here. OG going really deep. Whip shot up in the air, stunned as well. Almost died, but Gargoyle comes in with that self-destruct. And it pops Myeonbong's Immortality Field and finds Valentine as well. Really nice re-engage from Florida without even having to use the Nano Boost, Jonathan.
Yeah, so they're not really committing a lot of unforced errors here for the Mayhem. As you say, they have the Nano Boost, they have the duplicate as well. You gotta be scared of the Yaki Reinhardt on King's Row, I tell you that. And BQB is 80% on your way to an EMP here. The Boston Uprising, though, they have a Molten Core to work with. You know, they have an amplification matrix on themselves, so they can actually poke down the Florida Mayhem a little bit. But again, it comes down to the Florida Mayhem. This is just a match of teamwork. Can you get these good engages going?
There's a Nano Boost in onto OG, and like you said, the Yaki Reinhardt, it's to be feared. He's already had 2 opportunities to make magic occur, and this in his third, just holding the shield for the rest of his team. Rectangle Man coming out to play instead of getting value out of those ultimates, like in the Immortal clip that we've seen before. Oh, swings around the corner, going for the shadow, but Stan One, he's savvy to it. And now all eyes on BQB as he hangs around up top. He has that EMP, it's popped. 3 players found. I'm37 though, always in the right position, at the right time with that Deadeye. Not only does it zone, but it finds Gangnam Jin, and Valentine's turret wasn't satisfied, wasn't satiated with what it got on Nepal. It wants more, it must feast.
So this is what I'm talking about for the Mayhem. Don't necessarily secure any value with their ultimates here. Boston Uprising play the long con, but you sort of have to talk about these BQB EMPs now, because, you know, he hits 2 or 3. Faith already, though, popped the rally, so that armor is going to keep the Boston Uprising healthy and alive. You want to see better EMPs here from the Florida Mayhem, better engages. Now, you have a rally coming up. Maybe you can build that Nano Boost in time, because you want to engage pretty soon. Otherwise, the Boston Uprising are just going to steamroll the way through point 0.
Yeah, I'd love to see BQB try and get hack targets onto Myeonbong to take the Immortality Field out of the equation. I feel like that could be a major win condition for them. But these neutral hacks, they just haven't quite been there. That's a big Bionade and a hack onto Valentine, but it's Punk who just throws the perfect self-destruct into the backline. And once again, these ultimates used to zone away the Florida Mayhem, like I'm37's Deadeyes and Punk's self-destructs, they've been perfectly timed.
Absolutely. It's going to be a last-ditch effort here for the Florida Mayhem, pulling out the rally. Now, they do have an Nano Boost. They have a Primal Rage, so they can't stall for quite some time here. But Boston Uprising, they are so comfortable in this area.
There's cream all over the objective. What are you supposed to do against that? It's everywhere. And the Boston Uprising, they're just going to be able to roll this one through, surely. Slime goes down, and OG, he's got a Nano Boost, but nobody can get to the objective. It's a classic Florida Mayhem C9. Oh, no.
I mean, if only, if only we had the Bastion come out there, you know? That's a Florida surprise. I think we could have seen that. No, but for real though, I think the Boston Uprising, solid attack from them. They're playing to their strengths once more. The Florida Mayhem, they're still in this though. I mean, 46 seconds on the timer for the Boston Uprising, getting all those 3 points. But I feel like the Florida Mayhem, now playing on the attack, if they could flank around their opponents, get some value with these hacks, they're certainly still in this matchup. Not going to count them out just yet.
Do you think that their strategy so far is going to be effective on attack if they run the same thing? I guess that's the big question, right? Because Boston Uprising, I think they're going to be fairly happy with their strategy coming into this game. Running the Tourbillon, running the McCree, running the Rhine. That's it. They feel like they're confident. They're 1-0 up in the series and they just had a successful push. Do the Florida Mayhem need to change anything? And
I don't think
pause on
so.
that just for one moment. What is this? That was the EMP cancel from earlier. Great work by Faith, and a good catch from you as well, Jonathan. But sorry, going back to my original question, do Florida need to change something for this attack?
I mean, it looks like they might be changing something here. Widowmaker Hanzo. When was the last time we saw this? Apex? I mean, we haven't seen the double sniper composition on King's Row Point A for quite some time. Now, we do see it once in a while. OG is going to play the Reinhardt. Gargoyle is going to play the Diva. He swaps over to. Okay, so we see the McCree. So they actually are changing quite a bit here. Now, Slime is going to be on the Mercy. I'd love to know what you think about this, because he goes over to Lucio. I'm like, what is...
Well,
you can never trust the top right corner, Sideshow. You can't really trust the hero picks in the first 15 seconds.
Yeah, I think the Sonic Arrow just used there to try and scout the opposing composition. And the Boston Uprising, you know, maybe we're going for a damage boost, seeing if Yaki can find a pick. But now the Florida Mayhem, they have swapped over to something that resembles a lot of what they were doing in the main melee with that Rhine and Sigma. This goes back to what they were trying to play when Rush was meta at the beginning of the year. As Yaki pushes in, that's an early Immortality Field pop for both teams, but the Florida Mayhem are on the wrong side of this. So much damage coming through, especially from that turret, which Valentine has done such a great job of setting up in a little off angle. Look at the sight lines there that it has.
Yeah, and I mean, this is just an absolute brawl inside the hotel here. BKB actually finds a pick. Okay, Amplification Matrix comes down, but Gangnam Jin gets Valentine. It's a bit of a trade-off here. What a massive brawl inside this hotel area. Any team winning out? Not really.
What an unusual scenario. Myunbong getting another Immortality Field off, and Punk gets back in mech. So the Florida Mayhem, as they try to retake the high ground here, what else do they have to work with? Well, they're pretty close to the Blizzard, but it's Gargoyle I'm looking at. If he gets off a nice Gravitic Flux with Myunbong's Immortality Field off cooldown, that could be a game changer. But the longer they wait, the closer Myunbong is going to be to having it back. There was a shatter attempt that didn't quite work, and here's Gargoyle, there it is, that's the combo. Gargoyle lifts him up, and BQB shuts him down. That's the Florida Mayhem going to be able to take point A.
Absolutely, great point A attack by them. Getting out on the Boston Uprising positioning. Because, again, if you rethink that fight, right? The Florida Mayhem, they're contesting the Boston Uprising for a little bit on the top-hand side. But then they sort of force the Boston Uprising into this very awkward position inside the hotel lobby area. So the Florida Mayhem, they're utilizing the Sigma, being able to play this double shield composition and poking their opponents down. Finally, BQB gets some picks, then you build your ultimates, Gravitic Flux comes out. So it's a very patient play from the Florida Mayhem. And, you know, you're playing these compositions, and you see Valentine playing a Torbjorn, you think they're the slower team. But Florida Mayhem, despite being known for the Winston compositions, actually shows some great disengagement there playing the Reinhardt.
There's a wall and a nice engagement straight onto I'm37. Immortality Field came out a little too late there. There's a shatter attempt that doesn't get too much as the Boston Uprising try to claw back into this team fight. Even though OG has fallen here, with Slime dropping, that might spell doom for Florida as they were attempting to get this objective moving, but it's all going to get snarled up in the street space now.
Unless?
Wait, how did Stand 1 end up in a book?
Unless?
Is he gone? Are you looking for Don Quixote? What's he doing out there? What?
It's a
George
library.
R. R. Martin just released another one? What's happening? What's he looking for? What's he looking for?
I mean,
that seems like very weird positioning to me. But
look, I don't know books, okay? I'm about as educated about books as Matt Morello, okay? I can't give you the answer. I don't know what he was looking for inside the bookshop.
Okay.
Don't they have, like, you know, comic books and stuff inside there as well? Maybe he's reading, like,
probably
anime or something? I don't know.
Well, here's I'm37 sneaking around the side, just looking again, I think, for OG to overextend himself slightly. One of the big advantages of this composition is that you have massive ults to be able to work with. Nice flash to take I'm37 out of his Deadeye, and it's the Gravitic Flux into the Blizzard. A time-honored combo. Very similar to the Flux into the Deadeye as well, that just locks it down. And the slower you are with this comp, the more you can rely on those utility, or rather ultimate combos.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. The Florida Mayhem, they're taking the time with this double shield composition. Beautiful play by them so far. This is what we want to see from the Florida Mayhem, though, because they pride themselves on these Winston compositions, playing a faster game, but now they're showing their dominance in the Reinhardt matchup as well, realizing the Boston Uprising, they're trying to play around this Mei. Amplification Matrix comes out from Gangnam Jin, just poke these Boston Uprising fellas down. You know, they can't really engage with this Mei at all, they can't really get this poke off by I'm37, BQB pulls out the high noon. Will we see a boop or two here, set himself up for success? Not quite. Mei wall comes out from Yaki as well, playing around this point right here. OG goes down to Stand 1, and now Boston Uprising looks to push the pace.
Yeah, and Matrix just eviscerated OG. I think it was a flash over the top of the Reinhardt shield that takes him down. But they still have such a time bank. 3.5 minutes, and the Florida Mayhem is just ult economy, and how well they've played around that. And the pace at which they've managed to slow the game down has really helped them. Now they've got to navigate Valentine and Faith, though. It's a big offensive ultimate and a big defensive ultimate as well to be able to work with. Unless OG can pull some magic out, this might just be Florida again, waiting, trying to draw the ults out, but not necessarily going.
Oh, there it is!
Well, that's the magic that I was referring to. Faith forced to utilize his sound barrier to keep everybody on the Boston Uprising alive. And Florida, they're going to be able to disengage. Can OG survive? Yes, with the help of the sound barrier and the Immortality Field. The Reinhardt lives.
Great trades by Florida Mayhem here. You want to get these ultimates out so then you can pick your poison when you want to engage. Amplification Matrix comes down to stall off the Boston Uprising, and now you're trying to push the tempo. BQB about to build this high noon as well, but it comes out from I'm37 first. Locks up Gargoyle, picks him off, and now the Boston Uprising, they're at the man advantage here. They're trying to secure this team fight. I'm37 finds another one onto BQB, and from here on, the Florida Mayhem, they're looking to disengage.
What a play by I'm37 to be able to turn that around. 2.5 minutes. They're slowly ticking it off, second by second. And Boston would love to have a time bank for that, or rather, even if you manage to complete it here, the Boston Uprising would be happy to just tick some portions off and make it a bit more of an even game. Now, having said that, we're looking for the combo again. Gargoyle to lift them up and dunk them straight into a Yaki Blizzard. That's what I believe they're going to go for. And you can see them splitting the team into 3 and 3. Yaki, OG working around the side, probably with the help of Slime. They normally play this with a Lucio speed boost as well. The Boston Uprising have identified this. They try and utilize the Amp Matrix, but it's not going to quite work. There it is. The Gravitic Flies, but the Blizzard gets eaten. What a play by Punk. He was doing it all yesterday as well. That's the third in a couple of days as he just gobbles up that snowball. But it might have been too little, too late, as the Florida Mayhem, with their massive positional advantage, are still going to be able to win the team fight and roll it through.
I mean, Punk right there. He eats it, but it's not quite enough for the team fight win. Australian about as successful as the Emu War for that side of the country, but the Florida Mayhem, yeah, they secured the 3 points. Solid time back here as well.
Have we not insulted him enough? Have we not insulted him enough? You're going to bring up the Emu War.
I'm just stating facts right here. Isn't this what casters are supposed to do? Pull out the facts, you know?
No,
bring it on.
no. You've misunderstood. Casters are supposed to weave facts into narratives that ignore the facts.
Oh, okay. So it's not about the facts, it's about the gameplay, but using facts as sort of like the description of what's going on.
Listen, it's an art form, not a science. We'll get you some lessons, Sonny Jim. We'll get you some lessons. But the one thing you shouldn't do is insult the only player that's come from Australia to play in the Overwatch League recently. Ever since Custer's move over to the desk, they'll be having words with you. The Australian gang is they're tight knit.
I didn't know that they felt so strongly about that. Okay, I'll watch my words. I'll be careful.
Yeah, watch yourself. They're coming for us both. I don't want to get involved as well. What do you think about this? What do you think about this swap up for Florida Mayhem? It seems to have been successful so far.
Yeah, I mean, I like the way they're playing because you can control the tempo. You got that Lucius, you can engage, disengage. You're playing the Sigma. I'm more curious about the Boston Uprising here. Are you going to change something up? You're the one picking this Reinhardt battle, right? Punk is going to stick with this D.Va. And yes, you have the defense matrix, but you sort of have to be the aggressor here. Valentine's going to swap over to this Mei. So if you're the Boston Uprising, you have 45 seconds to work with here. You want to force the Florida Mayhem to really mess up their positioning here and maybe fall victim to the Mei wall coming up from Valentine.
Gargoyle with a bit of a kinetic grasp has managed to elevate his HP bar somewhat. But Boston are taking their time. 15 seconds, that's a third of their time back that they had available, has now disappeared as they navigate their way towards the objective. A wall comes out, but Florida, they drop very quickly from the position. A wall comes out to try and separate Stan One. Nice flash. That peels a little bit, but Stan One, he's taken so much damage. And there's the Immortality Field already destroyed. Slime doing a good job of taking that down from distance. And Stan One, the Reinhardt, the pillar that was keeping the Boston Uprising alive, he's fallen. But OG, he drops as well. Are they really going to be able to turn this?
Oh, it's an even fight right now, the Boston Uprising. They have to focus on touching this point so they don't C9, but it's a bit of a battle behind the statue. No one touches. That's is that a C9? I don't think that can be classified as a C9. I mean, you're trying to win the fight, right? But they didn't step on the point. Should we let YouTube chat be the judge of that one?
Well, if you let the YouTube chat be the decider, then they'll say that everything's a C9. You could have team fights that are decided miles away from the objective and they'd still call it a C9. But I think in that scenario, Boston Uprising had a serious chance of being able to win that fight. I know that everybody obviously is, involved in their own different portion of the team fight. And it felt like in that scenario, nobody could really peel themselves away to touch the objective. But, oof, that's gotta hurt them. And now the Florida Mayhem have set themselves up pretty with a great win condition. Just a single tick required for the minute and 46.
So this is actually quite nice from the Florida Mayhem. A small little factoid about the Florida Mayhem is that they're actually 4-1 on King's Row. A fact you really wouldn't expect when you consider the Florida Mayhem. Like to play these Winston compositions, I've said it so many times at this point. And King's Row generally favors these slower shield compositions. But they're showing that they're quite adept at playing these rotations on the map. They're comfortable engaging as well as disengaging. Found a nice pick early there on the Stand One. So this is an impressive Florida Mayhem performance by them, I feel like, on this map. Now, we're going to see the double sniper come out. But this time around, I'm not fooled, BKB and Yaki, okay? You're trying to land some pot shots. I get it, right? Trying to get some shield picks. Yeah, but it's not happening. Swap over to Aurelio. There we go.
Almost gave Faith a new haircut there, though. He was just peeking his head out from above Stan One's shield, and that got dangerous for a moment. That would have immediately given the point over to the Florida Mayhem. But we're still seeing the same kind of compositions being run here. The May McCree mirror. Look at Faith's positioning. Got really high above them to try and separate somebody off and find that first pick. But it's not going to quite work. He backs off. And Myunbong is the one that's taking a bit of damage early. Good defensive wall. Good defensive wall by Yaki. But that Immortality Field from Gundam Jin forced out so early on. And that's going to give Boston Uprising a big advantage at the start.
This is fine, though. I mean, you got 1 minute on the timer. You had 45 more seconds to deal with if you're the Florida Mayhem. So you want to build up the amplification matrix, maybe build up the high noon, just focus on staying alive here. Decent wall, but Stan One gets away. So you're just trading blows here. Now, Myunbong is the first one to actually get the amplification matrix. Maybe you can use that to push the Florida Mayhem back a little bit, but I wouldn't panic if I'm the Florida Mayhem. You still have 40 seconds to work with. It's half an engagement, so amplification matrix comes out. Just calm down. Just disengage. Take your time. But BQB gets caught. Immortality Field comes down.
Yeah, Immortality Field down and BQB as well, hitting the spawn queue. It looked like a bit of a dangerous place. Oh, Stan One! He's been caught out completely there, not on the same page as the rest of his team, who were all retreating to consolidate on the objective. They go back. Faith has gone back to the spawn to try and taxi Stan One there as quickly as possible. And as those two try and get back to the front line, the rest of the Florida Mayhem are going to have a slightly easier time of being able to get in. That's a wall to block off the Deadeye. Stan One, great defense matrix as well from Punk, gobbles it all up. And Valentine's Blizzard, that's the key, as I'm37 manages to find that first pick as a result of it. The Boston Uprising, they look like they're doing it here, Jonathan.
Absolutely, the Florida Mayhem doesn't get any value from their ultimates. Faith drops the sound barrier just as the cherry on top to secure the draw on King's Row. Wow, we might be in for quite a matchup here, Sideshow.
Certainly feels like it, doesn't it? What was that statistic again? They're 4 and 1 or something? Well, they're 4-1-1 now. The Florida Mayhem getting only a draw, and they have yet to equalize in the series. That felt like such an opportunity for them after they had, theoretically at least, cracked the code of the slower composition that the Boston Uprising was bringing out. Wow.
I mean, that was theirs to win, right? Yeah,
certainly
they had
was.
the ultimates.
Yeah, that feels like it really changes the dynamic of the series as well. But you got to remember that that is King's Row, where Reinhardt compositions are favored the most. As we delve deeper in this map series, that may not be the case, because when we come back from this break, we're going to be taking a look at both of these teams playing on Junkertown. So that promises to be absolutely mental. We'll catch you there.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest and fastest 5G network. Set your sights on the competition with T-Mobile. And by Xfinity, the preferred internet provider of the Overwatch League. The Overwatch League is brought to you by Pringles. Stay in the game. And by NetApp, the official data management partner of the Overwatch League.
A new tournament means that a new bracket is unlocked. Can you get a perfect bracket for the Summer Showdown? Go to pick'em.overwatchleague.com to submit your picks for this week's matches. Submitting your peaks won't do anything. You'll have to submit your picks. Otherwise, they call it a peek'em, wouldn't they? I forgot to submit my picks.
Now. Oh, no!
I forgot.
Come on.
I'm sorry. I always forget to submit my picks. I'm at the bottom of every leaderboard I'm in. Let's take a look at this Ashe top 10, though. This is the power ranking specific to Ashe, built with IBM Watson. What do you think about this? I am surprised to see I'm37 at the 8th spot.
Yeah, I mean, talking about picks, I'm37 is one capable of doing just that, right? Number 8 here above BQB.
Wordplay.
It's interesting. Oh, come on, I'm selling into the casserole. But you know, it's an interesting power rankings with IBM Watson because BQB, we generally know him as the better long-range hit scan player. He had great effectiveness in the main melee, of course. But I'm37 sneaking up to the number 8 spot here for the Boston Uprising. A player that, you know, quite honestly, I think I underrated when he first got into the league, then came back on this Boston Uprising roster. So maybe he will be a key on Junkertown as we head over to the 3rd map here, Sideshow.
Right, and that's kind of the point. We haven't seen much Ashe from either of these two teams yet, but as we explore the map pool a little deeper, we're now heading to very different territory. You could not get more different maps than Kings Row into Junkertown, honestly. One very tight, close, claustrophobic, and then Junkertown just has so many open spaces, especially on that checkpoint A. When you're thinking about kind of I'm37 as well, though, Jonathan, I think that he has massively improved this year compared to his first experience in the Overwatch League. And I think that's the key, experience. To me, when I'm37 first came in, he was a very fresh rookie. He was kind of, there were a bunch of memes about him going all the way to Commissioner because he'd so quickly speedrun the path to pro. And now that he's come back after a bit more experience in Contenders and moving up to Owl, he does look like a solid player for Boston.
Absolutely, but I still feel like, you know, going up against BQB, we generally herald BQB as one of the better hit scan players in the league, especially when you play on that Widowmaker, that Ashe. I feel like I remember back to when Florida Mayhem played Atlanta Reign, I think it was in last year's, either the Summer Showdown or the main melee, and BQB was having a fantastic performance on Junkertown, taking down Baby Bay, playing on the Atlanta Reign. And at that moment, it sort of felt like BQB, he defeated his opponent, you know, his mirror on the enemy team, and sort of like sucked in his skills, you know? Like he just took everything that Baby Bay knew about Overwatch and his skill, etc.
He space jammed him.
He space jammed him, exactly, yeah. So BQB sort of, you know, he took that armor and wore it himself. Now going up against I'm37, I feel like if I'm37 is able to establish himself as the better hit scan player of the two, I feel like the same sort of goes for I'm37 as he looks to make a name for himself in the Overwatch League.
Well, BQB is going to be playing that Ashe as part of a full poke composition from the Florida Mayhem. BQB is going to be damage boosted. You've got all of that damage coming out from Gangnam Jin as well as the Discord Orb, which is so helpful. And OG playing a lot of ball as well, which apparently is something they've been trying out in scrims. Matt Morello was talking about that on the broadcast earlier on. But the Boston Uprising have gone for this Reinhardt composition, and immediately Myeonbong falls. The Rein comps are not very common on this map, though, John.
Absolutely, no, they're not. I mean, I think the only time we're really seeing the Reinhardt successful here is during the Ghosts meta, but we're far away from that, luckily. So, the Florida Mayhem, though, it's all about the surrounding engagements, right? You're playing this Wrecking Ball, you want to come out, you want to pile drive the opponents, get them up into the air, and then, you know, it's like shooting clay for BQB, right? So, we can see now setting up here. Gangnam Jin is far back, applying those Discord Orbs, and BQB trying to find an opening with this Ashe.
Well, that dynamite did not go in the right place, as far as I'm aware. Yep. Oh, believe me, it happens. I've been struggling with them in my games. Look at the distance and space that Florida Mayhem are playing from, though. Gangnam Jin's so far back because he's able to still do max damage from that long range, and I'm37 just gets crunched. The Boston Uprising have so much distance to try to cover if they want to try and fight the Florida Mayhem. And as they rotate around the map, just kiting this Ant Matrix, now Boston have flipped the... Oh! Little teleport out of there, dodges the pile drive from OG, and they flip the map back. So,
but
familiar territory.
I wonder if that was intentional, because they actually picked off Faith early on with that pile driver. And when you lose, they lose your speed. I mean, if you're the Boston Uprising, what are you going to do? It's a quick teleporter up. Punk is going to apply some pressure onto the enemy backline here for the Mayhem. Gargoyle goes down, and now we actually have a man advantage for the Boston Uprising. But it's all about slowing the Boston Uprising down. That's a huge pulse bomb. Look at the health of Boston Uprising. It's an easy pick'ems. Like, the cleanup is there. Bob's your uncle. And he gets 2 picks. What a coincidence.
A murderous uncle indeed. Bob was able to get a ton of damage there, and like you said, the pulse bomb, when everybody from the Boston Uprising was trying to play inside Myunbong's immortality field, the pulse bomb did huge damage to everybody involved. What a play by Yaki. And Florida are playing this poke composition very well. It's one of the strengths that Florida showcased in, albeit a 5-map loss to the Toronto Defiant, was just their ability to play a range of different styles. And here, Gargoyle under a lot of pressure, but the trance is just going to keep him alive. And Boston lose too many people trying to pivot around the map.
Worth?
Is it worth?
Yeah, well, no. Yeah,
kind of.
I mean, you were losing the fight. Oh,
yeah, so...
Yeah.
I mean, Gangnam Jin is still, I think, going to be able to return to the fight at somewhat similar time. All right, he actually makes the move over to Batiste. Yeah, possibly because that poke damage and Discord Orb isn't available for Boston Uprising as they path in. And now they're going for something very different. Creative use of the teleporter there from I'm37. Nets them a kill, the pin onto Gargoyle. Gargoyle's ankle's broken in the midst of that, and Slime died as he was trying to get the Resurrect up. Bob, the murderous uncle, back on the battlefield again, just putting that pressure onto Stan 1 and stopping him advancing. But this does look like the first chance of success for Boston.
Pulse bomb, Yaki waiting in the wings. BKB finds a pick on the face. Gangnam Jin as well, carrying his weight. Pulse bomb comes out. Tons of damage on the Stand 1. Can't really find the fix. BKB cleans up as well. There goes Valentine. And the Florida Mayhem, they hold miraculously. Great accretion onto Myunbong. And the Boston Uprising, you got 15 seconds to go. You got to regroup. Stand 1, what are you doing? Get out of there!
How did that happen? What a play by Yaki, and then also Gargoyle just surviving throughout it all. Gangnam Jin lasering people down from the back too. Boston have no answers. They may have come in with a great strategy of this Reinhardt comp, but this is not the answer right here, right now. The Coalescence, as Myunbong desperately avoids being taken down, he's getting harassed from all angles, forced to use the Coalescence to try and peel the Tracer away. The rest of his team are not feeling the effects of that at all. 37, he drops, he dies. Thankfully, the rest of the Boston Uprising are getting work done as Myunbong takes matters into his own hands, starts to suck the players at the front line and suck them dry of their life force. The Florida Mayhem, they're desperately trying to defend, but this will be checkpoint A to Boston.
All right, so I said heal, but Myunbong actually found 2 picks there as Moira. So maybe that was the key all along. It took 4 minutes, 4:30, including overtime probably. But maybe DPSing as Moira was the answer all along, Joe.
Apparently it was. Myunbong took your advice, flipped it on its head, and ended up getting some success out of it. Now Gangnam Jin moves over back to the Zenyatta as well. So we have this original poke composition except with Gargoyle on D.Va. So they have a lot of ability to ping-pong tanks back on and off the objective. But you've got to be so worried about these teleporters as soon as they come in. I'm 37 with a Discord Orb, but him surviving with only 20 health there. He'll back up. And this payload is going to continue moving. But the rest of Florida aim to surround. They want to take control of the high ground up and around the Boston Uprising, which means that Boston need to path and take it away from them. They've got to use that speed to take the high ground, surely. You can't just stand on the payload when everybody is just hammering you from all angles.
Absolutely. You need to get rid of Gangnam Jin. He's public enemy #1 here. He has the Discord board that does so much damage to the Boston Uprising playing this slower comp. Teleporter comes out. If you're just looking to speed here, Slime goes down, Gangnam Jin goes down. Perfect engagement by the Boston Uprising with that teleporter.
I love this. This is giving me shades of the Dallas Fuel when they were playing in the main melee, honestly. The incredibly creative, dynamic teleporter use coming out from I'm37 here. I think we've only really seen that be used in a similar manner with Sparkle when he was playing it for the Dallas Fuel. So I'm loving the way the Boston are approaching that. How do you close the gap? Yeah, symmetric teleport. Perfect. Gangnam Jin had no idea what was coming towards that backline. And Florida Mayhem, despite looking like they were going to close this out at checkpoint A, are all the way back. All the way back at C.
Yeah, and when you really consider this composition, I mean, point A is when you're going to have the longest distance to cover, right? So now you're playing on point C, and you can teleport to the high ground immediately, speed boost in. It's going to be tough for Geinenger to position. He's on this pillar in the middle right here, right? But the teleporter comes out, and they're actually pushing the backline here on the low ground. Valentine finds a pick onto BKB, Punk eats the pulse bomb from Yaki, and now the Boston Uprising, they are applying the pressure. Florida Mayhem have to find something going for themselves.
Well, they managed to pick off Faith, so there's no sound barrier. OG, he takes a shatter to the face, but no ability to finish him off. And Boston, they are continually having to deal with this Discord Orb being applied to I'm37. But so far, his survivability rate has been pretty good. Yaki's attempting to harass the backline, but Florida continue to get pushed back and harried.
You have to take your time here. Nice pile drive coming in from OG, and that has combined with the dynamite from BKB. Bob goes in as well on top of the cart. Fades drops the sound barrier to counter here, and if you're Boston Uprising, you just want to clean up, take it slow for them. Pressure is on them now to find picks, utilizing that Discord Orb. Yankee is flanking around, got the pulse bomb as well. Pile drive comes out, combined with the minefield from OG on that wrecking ball. Yaki finds that pick on the Faith, crucial here, but you still need to finish up the rest of the Boston Uprising. Pulse bomb, is he going to find that pick? Boston Uprising, they're just peeling away. They want none of this. They're stacked behind enemy front lines.
They've all run away up to the high ground in that very rarely used room up on Junkertown C, waiting for Faith to reconnect with the rest of them. He's already utilized that big defensive ult that he had, but the speed boost is so crucial. You can't just rely on the teleporter. Stan 1, he nearly died in the midst of all of this. Look at this sneaky positioning. The problem with Valentine being there is that the rest of his team are dying. And so, is he really going to be able to turn this fight around? There's no chance.
Oh my goodness!
That's a terrible...
Holy moly! Okay. Word, I guess? I don't know.
I don't think so. Slime's going to be off the spawn queue immediately.
I mean... Well, Valentine swaps to the Tracer. 10 seconds to go here for the Boston Uprising. You do have the Coalescence and the Self-Destruct, so you can push a tempo. But Florida Mayhem, they're going to pop the Valkyrie right away. Valkyrie as well being used here. And now the Florida Mayhem, they're just looking to clean up. Faith goes down, M37 goes down. Self-Destruct as a last-ditch effort from Punk. He actually finds BKB, but it's really all about the Florida Mayhem at this point. Bob doing tons of work on the point as well. Slime resurrects BKB, and the Florida Mayhem looking quite solid playing this Zenyatta composition. Maybe a recipe for success in the rest of the series.
Yeah,
well, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself.
Good.
I mean, there's more Junkertown to go, but...
There certainly is, and the Boston Uprising are not out of it. It was still a good push. It's just not quite what they were looking for. Having said that, when you consider how this map began and how difficult it was for them to be able to push point A, I think they'll be pretty pleasantly surprised about how it all ended up. Being able to capture point B and get 72 meters through, that is winnable. And I've got to ask the question, Jonathan, is Florida expected to have as much success running a poke comp on attack?
Yeah, it's going to be difficult because when you consider the dynamics of playing on attack and on defense, the Florida Mayhem, they are the ones who have to approach now. You know, they have to push the cart forward. They are the ones who have to walk around these angles. But that is naturally going to play the Boston Uprising's favor because they can play behind these corners, they can play behind the obstacles, and then just speed boost in. They can utilize the teleporter. So it's not Boston Uprising that necessarily have to, you know, cover all this ground to push forward. Now it's actually Florida Mayhem that are stuck in a bit of a positional trap where they have to apply pressure onto the cart, and maybe you can utilize Gargoyle for that. As we take a look at Gargoyle actually getting this Gravitic Proxy. Nope, it's just going to be solid pickings onto Valentine. Nice accretion right here, yeah, onto Mjolnir. This is beautiful.
I mean, you've got to imagine that was aimed for Punk, no? But still, perhaps he caught a sliver of Mjolnir. Just the sleeve of Moira's dress.
To be honest with you, just send Gargoyle to the Tokyo Games, right? Because that's a rock throwing.
Well, BKB dies right off the rip, but Slime's there with a Resurrect, and obviously the spawn advantage massively in favor of Florida here. Boston Uprising with one of these close holds. Wow, they are instantly onto BKB with another one of those teleports as Stan1 takes the Discord Orb, but you might as well call it a Death Orb because he looks like he's going to drop at any moment. Nevertheless, at this point for Boston with their Reinhardt comp, it's just about ticking time off. They want to take an extra team fight as soon as you come out of the gates, and they should be able to get set back up.
Yes, they should definitely be able to. And the Florida Mayhem, now they're actually the ones who get to choose where they want to stand as this next teamfight approaches. Gangnam Jin is already moving up. Naturally, you want to see the Zenyatta behind the card, right? But Gangnam Jin acknowledges that, hey, we're the ones able to set up here on the outskirts of this point now. We can play towards the edge of the map. BQB as well, rotating around. And you can see this huge concave angle. Yaki is going to be on top of the Boston Uprising already, applying pressure. Pulse bomb right here. The Boston Uprising are stacked. Can you get out the Immortality Field? Then maybe apply this. As we look for a Pulse Bomb, Immortality Field goes out. So now you can really go for something.
Oh, it went on to Punk. I think they were aiming there to get a Discord Orb and a Pulse Bomb. It does enormous amounts of damage, but just not quite on the right target as everyone was grouped up. And that Ant Matrix, it whistles down OG as he lets a hamster's cry of relief sent back to the spawn queue. Nope, resurrected back up. Slime had that one available and was in a position where he was able to do it. But nevertheless, the Florida Mayhem are dropping now that the gap has been closed by the Boston Uprising. We get into areas where they are much, much more comfortable. Gargoyle's self-destructive buys a little bit of time, but ooh, no one could really get away from that self-destruct on the other side, and Gangnam Jin's forced to use his Transcendence. The Boston Uprising are sticking into this. The Shadow catches too. Both tanks on the floor. Discord Orb applied to stand one as the rally keeps him alive, but nevertheless 2 minutes left in the pool here for the time bank, and the Boston Uprising, they've flipped the map. They've completely flipped it. The Florida Mayhem were previously in kind of control of all of this, but Boston are utilizing their mobility in really good ways considering they don't have a Sim or a Lucio.
So an Amplification Matrix comes out as well. I think that's a bit premature from Myeonbong here, trying to stall off the Florida Mayhem. But honestly, it's really beautiful play from both teams. Yeah, Florida Mayhem, they don't cap the objectives, but they stay alive. Zenyatta is up, applying pressure with the Discord Orb. OG is going to have this minefield, gets stunned, Rise as he tries to get a slam on, and he's actually going to go down to Valentine. Now that is big problems for the Florida Mayhem. Probably have to disengage from this fight now. Bob's going to go down as well. You need to build these ultimates. Yaki needs to find a pick with these Pulse Bomb. What else do you really have going for you when I'm 37 shuts down BQB?
That is gorgeous. The double headshot there and another one. Oh! You don't try and res him? What a wasted cooldown, because I'm 37's hitting headshots like none other. That is incredible what this McCree has been able to pull out. Yaki and BQB, the DPS monsters that often carry the Florida Mayhem through these fights, they have just been destroyed. Boston Uprising were able to stay alive in that fight for so long, just waiting for something like that to occur.
And now it's down to probably the last team fight here. Gangnam Jin has a Transcendence. Yaki still lurking with that Pulse Bomb. But now if you're the Boston Uprising, I mean, you're comfortable. You got a Torbjorn turret down, just like scouting this very narrow angle. And you got an Immortality Field as well. It's going to be Florida Mayhem having to play impeccably here to find the picks needed to secure the point.
Good work from Punk using his defense matrix to stop BQB's Dynamite getting any value. There's a rally and an Amp Matrix down. Zoning away the Florida Mayhem, and Yaki falls. He's dead in an instant. And that Pulse Bomb, it's not going to find anything. Slime has to completely ruin his positioning to go and resurrect Yaki. That means the BQB falls because he doesn't have the healing available, so you're trading one DPS player for the other, but Yaki with a Pulse Bomb they think is the better investment. It doesn't end up paying off, and Bob, oh Bob, he's so sad at the back there, just taking a sightseeing trip, old Uncle Bob. Boston Uprising, though, they are losing a couple of players here. They need to keep Stand 1 alive. It's overtime. It's super close, but Gangnam Jin has got such a good angle over at the side. As long as he can stay alive from this turret, Stand 1 has no chances of success. And BQB comes back in the fight, off the respawn, picks up 2, and the Florida Mayhem, in similar fashion to Boston, are only just getting checkpoint A by the skin of their teeth.
I mean, that's unbelievable. Truly great play by both teams, really, because Florida Mayhem, they're patient, they spread out once more in that concave angle, making sure that Gangnam Jin, he can apply the Discord Orbs, he can put the damage Innocent Zenyatta onto the Boston Uprising. But the Boston Uprising, I mean, being able to stay so alive for so long, 37, he can poke with this McCree, Valentine, he can drop the Molten Core, utilize the Torbjorn turret. I think we're seeing a pretty good matchup here between two good teams, and now as we go into point B, the question is going to be the Boston Uprising. What are you going to do with your composition? You have an Amplification Matrix coming up, you got a Self-Destruct. But really, now the Florida Mayhem, they can flank around. They can utilize Yaki on this Tracer to find picks early, apply pressure, and it's up to the Boston Uprising. How are you going to contest all this space?
Yaki takes a bit of damage there, forced to disengage, as is the rest of the Florida Mayhem. This Amp Matrix looking scary up on the high ground. Myeonbong is also a problem for Yaki if he tries to get value out of the Pulse. He's got to worry about the Immortality Field as well. But that does seem to be the difference maker right now, is whether Yaki can find somebody. He wants to drive a wedge through the Boston Uprising, isolate a target, find a pulse bomb kill. None of this is really possible when Boston is staying so closely knit together and keeping that cooldown available at all times.
Rally from
Here we
Cloud.
go with a rally engage. Just pushing deep. There it is. Yaki utilizes the pulse bomb, trades it for Immortality Field. And this is just a mess of a team fight happening on the low ground. But it looks like the rally is going to give them enough of an advantage to stay in this. Having said that, Jonathan, look at the position of the payload. It is so advanced.
It really is, and OG is going to apply pressure as well. Going for the C9 perhaps, Boston Uprising, will they see it? Okay, so yeah, OG gets scouted out, he gets poked down. And still, it's a nice proactive engage from the Boston Uprising, utilizing that rally. BKB goes out early here as well, that's a reset. Unless Slime is going to pop the Valkyrie, go for a rest. I think it was cancelled by Punk, actually going in there, denying the resurrection. OG and Yaki poking in the backlines as well, trying to draw out the Boston Uprising. So they are actually forcing the Boston Uprising to move towards the cart. They are forcing the positioning of the Uprising here. A bit of a Sugswang, don't you think?
Absolutely, I love the chess reference. BQB, though, he is not looking for chess. He's looking for Olympic sprinting value as he gets his way back to the point on the Soldier 76, trying to make the 100-meter dash and get back to the rest of his team as quickly as possible. Because we're into overtime here. Myeonbong with an Amp Matrix, keeping the rest of Boston kind of just holding it in a one tiny little room. It feels like they could do so much damage to Florida Mayhem if they were just able to penetrate that area, but the mines aren't just going to be able to do it. OG drops some Ganamjin himself forced to ult as well, and Valentine tries to zone them away with his Torbjorn ultimate. Is Gargoyle going to be able to push this one in? Surely not. I'm 37, he comes out with a huge play. Yaki and Slime drop to the spawn queue. Yaki found one posthumously though, and the rest of the Boston Uprising, they're dropping. The legs are doing it. The Soldier 76, their Helix Rocket takes down Stan 1. Surely Myeonbong doesn't clutch this. He's gotta die, and he does. The Soldier 76 collected all of the cleanup kills.
Oh my goodness, what a fight that was. I mean, that wasn't a barn burner, that was a forest fire. Both teams pushing each other to the edge, really going toe to toe, and it ends up in a 2 versus 1 situation. Florida Mayhem, I mean, they are walking out thin line right here, trying to keep up in this Junkertown, end up capping point B. We go towards point C, 1 minute on the timer here. BKB has the visor. There is no way he gets value with this visor, right? It shouldn't happen.
It feels like he should have made the swap immediately, but he's feeling the momentum of checkpoint B. How does he get value out of this? Stunned up. Bit of a fan the hammer possibly there, but he turns around and deals with I'm 37. He's just bait on the end of a string at the moment, and the Boston Uprising are kind of falling for it.
Here we go.
Managed to pivot though and take down both the tanks. Here's the tack visor, and he runs back to spawn. That's what you should do every time you play with Soldier 76. You pop your tack visor, run back to spawn, and pick a better hero. BKB moves over to McCree. 30 seconds left.
So it's a nice swap from the Boston Uprising though. They're playing the Reaper now and they want to hold really close. The Florida Mayhem, you can see Yaki flanking in the back as well. They have the minefield. It's tough here because the Florida Mayhem, they have to play so close. Gangnam Jin, Slime, they both get picked because they're playing on this high ground. But the Boston Uprising, they're just going to speed on top of you. This is really where Boston Uprising's composition shines. 5 seconds on the timer. This is struggling for the Florida Mayhem.
Anyone even touch? It does look like Gargoyle is going to be able to get there. Does he give his mech for it? Oh, yep, unfortunately, no self-destruct to be able to get back into the mech. Are they able to punish Stan 1 for getting a little aggressive there? Doesn't look like it. Yaki does take down Valentine, though. There's a hope and a dream left, and it's on the backs of the DPS players for the Florida Mayhem. Yaki would have to come out with some magic, and it is. He does a lot of damage to Faith, and the roll-through ends up getting the kill. A Pulse Bomb as well. Can he find the D-Mech? The Florida Mayhem maybe have a slightest of spawn advantages right now, but the further they push the payload, the harder it is for them to play on it. And Gargoyle,
he doesn't die.
Touches. I'm 37 has got to die. He does in the end, and Florida are keeping it alive. But for how long?
They are keeping it alive. The overtime is ticking, and it's ticking, and the cart is approaching the final destination here. Stand 1 has to shatter. There's no shield for the Florida Mayhem. Stand 1 could come in huge here for the Boston Uprising.
Here he is, the man of the moment, potentially. I was expecting a Deadeye from I'm 37 through the Amp Matrix as well, but it isn't there. OG falls though. Stan 1, he still has that shatter. Don't know what he's saving it for. Slimy, he just drops the Brigida shield, and Stan 1 drops the shatter. That's gonna send the Florida Mayhem packing as Boston Uprising take a 2-0 lead in the series. And you can see it on the Boston players' faces. They're happy about that one. Punk giving a bit of a fist over to the Stand One there, giving him the knuckles. As Stand One looks very pleased with himself.
Oh my goodness, what a Junkertown that was. Back and forth, different play styles. The Boston Uprising come out on top, really accelerating the pace of the game, playing that Reinhardt on point C. But I mean, that came down to the wire. I mean, this entire series has been a back and forth between both teams. Florida Mayhem, one feels as though maybe they should have ended up with a win on both Kings Row and Junkertown, but you know, Boston Uprising up 2-0 here. We did see a reverse sweep earlier in the day, Sideshow, so maybe don't count your chickens before they hatch.
Yeah, that's true. Reverse sweeps, they have happened. That was only the second reverse sweep of the season, though. So if you're banking on that, feels a little bit like Florida Mayhem copium. But we've seen stranger things, and this week, my word, it's been strange to begin the Summer Showdown, but it's also been hype. We'll catch you on the other side of this break as we see whether Florida are able to do the impossible, just like Paris did a little bit earlier.
Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
Welcome back from the break, everybody. It is heating up. The score might say that the Boston Uprising are clearly in the lead here, 2-0 advantage, but every one of these maps has been back and forth, and we had a draw in the middle of it. It does almost feel like it's still anybody's game, Jonathan.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been a battle of styles. The Boston Uprising favoring the Reinhardt most of the time, while the Florida Mayhem, they're trying to change things up. They play the Winston, they play the Reinhardt, they play the Wrecking Ball, most recently on the Junkertown map as well. But we also saw the Florida Mayhem have quite some success playing the Reinhardt themselves on King's Row, trying to mirror what the Boston Uprising were doing. Now they're playing a Sigma as well. So, you know, going into our next map, really don't have any clue as to what we'll see from the Florida Mayhem. But, you know, given the recent maps, we should be in for a good one, Sideshow.
Yeah, I think so. This has been a real clash, not only of styles, but of, like, players as well. It feels like this, the front line, especially, of Valentine and I'm37 have really stepped up to the occasion. You really need to be firing on all cylinders to be able to go toe-to-toe with Yaki and BQB. But when you take a look at Valentine, he's been playing Torbjorn for a lot of this game, and he's been able to find some pretty good value in it.
Absolutely. I mean, the Florida Mayhem, they're looking to flank around the map, but this is where the Torbjorn turret does a heck of a lot of work. Turret kills 10.4 turret kills per 10 minutes. I mean, that sounds absurd. I have no idea how that compares to the historical data by Torbjorns. But we saw here on Volska Industries, I mean, the turret just went to town, finding both BQB and Yaki as well on the Florida Mayhem, and here on King's Row as well. I mean, I'm loving this. The Swedish man is out, making me proud. Thank you so much. I really appreciate Valentine.
Quite a number of these Reinhardt turtley compositions have been incorporating Torbjorn. Not only just because we saw Torbjorn and Reaper getting played recently in the June Joust, but Nero's been playing it as well for the San Francisco Shock. And what I've noticed as well is the turret placements are quite different in this meta compared to usual. Throwing them at off angles, getting them in creative crossfires, essentially, so that the turret is supposed to be unattended. And I'm talking about on attack. I know that that's very common when you defend, but I'm talking about teams as they attack. You know, you've got Nero and Valentine yeeting away their Torbjorn turrets to try and make sure that they're on an off angle and take away some of the pressure, add other people like the D.Va or the Lucio having to consider them a responsibility in the middle of the team fight.
Yeah, and I mean, if you consider the Boston Uprising's composition playing alongside this Torbjorn, they really are drawing out these fights because they're playing the Brigitte, right, with tons of armor, really boosting your team. So if you can buy enough time for your Torbjorn, that turret is going to do so much work. And we really noticed on Junkertown, to be honest, when that turret was out, it was a distraction. Yaki had to deal with it. OG on the Wrecking Ball had to deal with it. Someone had to go and kill this turret because it's an off angle, right? So it's constantly going to lay in the pressure on the Thorn, be a thorn in their side for the Florida Mayhem unless you deal with this turret. And that really gives a boon to the Boston Uprising because now, if you see a member of the Florida Mayhem, there's the ones disengaging from the fight to deal with the turret, maybe that's an opening for you to capitalize with the rest of your team. So the turret, it serves multiple factors here where it can deal damage to the enemy team, but it can also open up the positioning of the Florida Mayhem quite a bit. So as we go into this next map, it's going to be the Volska Industries. Maybe keep an eye out for these turret placements and how it forces the Florida Mayhem to make a positional move over to deal with this turret and how the Boston Uprising can capitalize on that positioning.
The Florida Mayhem, though, are 2-0 down in the series, so any adaptation is going to have to come thick and fast. How do you think about this for a stat as well, Jonathan? The Florida Mayhem have been positive in terms of their win rate all season long. They started positive with a win, they've continued positive up until right now, where they are 4-5 after a 4-match loss streak. If they end up losing now as well in any of these maps coming up, if they let Boston Uprising get to 3, that'll be a 5-match loss streak. After going 3-1 and making it to Hawaii in the main melee, they've just essentially planked the second half of what we've played so far this season. That's brutal in terms of the trajectory for a team that a lot of people had expectations for, and I'm sure they did too.
Yeah, I mean, when we were talking about Florida Mayhem going into the season, we had them on the outskirts of the top 5 rankings, you know, talking the entire league, not just NA, but the entire league, including APAC as well. You know, they were like top 8, top 7 in most people's rankings, and then they ended up qualifying for the playoffs of the main melee stage. And that's when it really kickstarted this, like, hey, Florida Mayhem, they're a top 5 team in the league. They're one of the better teams around the league now. And since then, they've really just lost the plot, quite honestly, as you said, on a 5-match losing streak, trying to get back into things. But they need to find a composition that really works for them here in the Summer Showdown. Now, they are going to, once more, rely on the BKB Sombra here, trying to find any initial hacks, perhaps on the Punk, so he can build some ultimate charge. And they're trying to surround the Boston Uprising, playing the same Torbjorn Reinhardt composition.
Eventually, though, Florida are going to have to engage. You can't just allow the Boston Uprising composition to path around the map. Oh, and OG, what an unfortunate problem there. He gets flashed and taken down. If you overstay your welcome even slightly, then that Winston is extraordinarily squishy. He just wanted to take a bit of poke damage, build up Nano Boost charge for Gangnam Jin, and get out of there. But he was not given the opportunity. Now, he is not close to Primal. Gangnam Jin is not close to Nano, and the Boston Uprising are on the objective.
And it's this poise we've been lacking from the Florida Mayhem. OG, of course, great mechanical skill on these tank heroes, but being in the right position at the right time, not something that he's usually excelled at in his career. And he's going down once more! You need to build up this Nano Boost. BKB finds another pick on the stand 1 to trade it out, but you've lost your main tank. How are you going to contest this point?
It's another flash from I'm37 as well. Huge hero moment from Yaki there as he takes down the offender. I'm37 hits the dust. Faith dies as well. This is winnable for the Florida Mayhem. Slime is doing work at the back. He doesn't even have the Nano Boost applied. He doesn't have the rally. How did that go so wrong for Boston?
I mean, that's unbelievable, right? Like that should have been Boston Uprising's fight to win. You find an early pick onto OG, but the Florida Mayhem, they turn it around. Hero play from Yaki, just like you said. Being able to find that pulse bomb stick, and then you deal with the turret, getting away from the Boston Uprising, and then Slime comes in to clean it up. And they have plenty of ultimates. BKB, in stealth here, looking for a big EMP play. Can you go aggressive with this Nano Boost as well? Nice turret placement from Valentine. Now you have to deal with that. But this should be Florida Mayhem's fight with this EMP coming out soon.
I thought BQB was going to go for the engagement there. He's worried about Punk. He really wants to take him out of mech first. But Gargoyle's going to initiate. There goes the bomb up and over the top. Valentine does fall, separated from the rest of his team there, unable to get the safety of the Immortality field. Slime out on a bit of an island, but Gangnam Jin still has that Nano Boost. It's applied to OG in the end. There goes the EMP, and this is where the Boston Uprising are in trouble. All of this damage coming through, and they can't use any of their abilities to try and help him out. Faith as well popping the rally, but it's all for naught. Separated with this Primal Rage, and the Florida Mayhem look like they're in the driver's seat.
Yeah, but you need to lock this in, though. I mean, there's a few Boston Uprising members hovering around the point. OG goes down again. Great Bionade coming onto Faith, but the Immortality field is going to keep him alive. But they're still the ones applying pressure. Yaki goes for another hero play, doesn't secure the pulse bomb stick. And now, the Boston Uprising, they are the ones with point control. Here is I'm37 with the Deadeye, ready to go if need be. And the Florida Mayhem, they're just not going to touch the point. I mean, they don't even contest.
It was a stun onto Gargoyle there, who went to go for the contest. I'm not sure whether that was another flash from I'm37 or a bash from Faith, but either way, some CC getting used to stop the Florida Mayhem in their tracks, and Yaki was just too slow. OG dying first in both of the team fights, and then also getting caught at the end of his Primal Rage. That is so rough. BQB's up to another EMP here. That's got to be the thing to halt this momentum for Boston.
Absolutely, but the Boston Uprising, they're comfortable here. They might even just want to build this rally. Now we're going to see a great Bionade from Gangnam Jin, being able to push the Boston Uprising back a little bit. Amplification Matrix is used to try to poke the Florida Mayhem down. Nano Boost comes out onto OG, and this is where Florida Mayhem, they push the tempo. They want to secure the Nano Boosted Lawnmower, all these kills. Great 4-man Bionade once more from Gangnam Jin, but the rally's gonna come out. Counter EMP hits 5 men of the Boston Uprising, but they're not able to secure these picks still.
Yeah, but he used the EMP after the rally had already come out and after they'd already used that Bionade as well, so they didn't have that as a follow-up at all. It feels like the timing is just off a little bit, but that's a great way of being able to secure an advantage. The pick onto Myeonbong as Florida Mayhem dive back in, gives them an opening, and the rest of the Boston Uprising look like they're soon to fall. Yaki giving the business there, just for a moment to Faith, but I'm37 takes him down. Mosquito dealt with, but still not much time.
That's one powerful Mosquito. I mean, if Yaki's a Mosquito, like, he's deadly, you know?
They're the biggest killers. They're the biggest killers of humans.
Yeah, and so it's a storyline here. Is Boston Uprising going to come up with a vaccine? Because it's probably sorely needed if you're going to deal with Yaki here. The Molten Core comes out. I don't know how well that's going to serve you. trying to burn down the jungle, but Boston Uprising, yes, they stand on this point, trying to apply some pressure. Nano Boost once more onto OG. Well, if you die now, OG, I'd be surprised, because you got a Nano Boost and a Primal Rage. They're going to force the Boston Uprising back a little bit. Punk uses the self-destruct to secure some spacing. Amplification Matrix comes out from Yongbing as well. But you need to find these picks if you're Boston Uprising. Throw them aim on the re-engage. Primal Rage comes out. Self-destruct secures a pick onto stand 1. And the Boston Uprising, they're the ones in shambles now when Florida Mayhem gets the choice to re-engage on top of them.
Very nicely played. Slime holding onto his rally as well as the rest of the Florida Mayhem clean house. And that's not bad. A minute and a half left. And suddenly it feels like the Florida Mayhem have managed to find their footing. They're getting it done. It's not necessarily with these aggressive engagements, right, Jonathan? But it's the, like, re-engages afterwards.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, that's what you want to do if you're the Florida Mayhem, right? You're like, you don't have to, off the bat, engage and just, you know... Okay. Yaki was surprised!
It was cheeky. Oh, he drops his head as well. He's really upset about that one. That really has opened the door for the rest of Florida. BQB's desperately trying to get up to the rest of his EMP. Here comes the rally as well. Sustained for both sides as Valentine lies sleeping, napping on the job. But Stan One continues to make space. And Punk, he takes down BQB. That EMP is off the table. Great pulse bomb, but it's not going to make any difference. The immortality field was there, and the rest of the team, they're surging forwards off the back of the space that's been created. BQB's EMPs, they just haven't been as effective as they would have wanted to be. He'll desperately try to come back in with another one, and they do have a nano to maybe apply onto OG, but BQB falls as a result of it.
OG nano boosted. Molten Core comes out from Valentine as well. Stand 1, lays down the shatter, doesn't hit anyone. OG is dead once more, and the Boston Uprising, they're just surrounding this point. They're the ones applying the pressure. Yonbong's going to get an amplification matrix as well in the Florida Mayhem. They're dying like flies, one after one, and the Mosquito is defeated.
Yeah, what an insane amount of pressure onto OG. He comes in at the end there to try and clean house with a primal, and he gets shattered and flashed. I can't exactly recall in which order, but just chain CC'd by Stan One and I'm 37. That is pain, right? He has been focused really hard by Boston on this map so far.
Absolutely. I mean, OG, you have to be a bit more careful as well, because as a Winston player, you sort of have to acknowledge what is going wrong for you, because, you know, typically when you consider Winston players, we like to think of them as very aggressive Winston players, whether it's Bumper, you know, how he used to play for the Vancouver Titans, or, you know, it's a more defensive Winston if you're like Miro and, you know, jumping up and down. Maybe not the perfect example, but the point being, if you're a Winston player, you sort of have to change up the style you play depending on what the opponents are doing, how much pressure they're applying, who they're focusing, right? Because if you are OG now and you're noticing that you're being focused down, you're the one taking all this pressure, you're taking in so much damage, maybe play a bit more cautious. And that's hard to do. It's easier said than done, absolutely.
Absolutely.
But I feel like OG here, he has to change up the way he's positioning quite a bit. He has to acknowledge what abilities are they using to shut me down consistently. I mean, I'm playing against a Torbjorn, I'm playing against a McCree that can flashbang me, I'm playing against a Brigitte that can both whiplash and shield bash me, and how is that going to affect my Winston performance? So you sort of have to analyze throughout the game and throughout the series as OG, how are they really shutting me down, and how can I change up my pace? And he's actually going to change up the way he's playing. Well, it's over on the Wrecking Ball, but he goes over to the Reinhardt. Ooh. And this is what we saw Florida Mayhem actually have success with on King's Row. This is how they took down the Boston Uprising and forced a draw on a Reinhardt map on King's Row. So are they going to, you know, do a similar fashion here and try to win this map as well?
Certainly would appear so. Yaki stunned up again. This is I'm 37 coming in with the CC. The flashbangs have just been so important. It might not be him in the kill feed, but it's him setting up all of these early initiations. And there's Valentine's turret just continuing to do work on and off angle where nobody's really looking to pressure it. But for Florida, this isn't disastrous because they're looking to play slowly, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the Boston Uprising, they're happy just sitting here with the Torbjorn turret, just taking their time. And the mailman's here, so my dog is very upset because I don't think they're too upset with Boston Uprising's play right now. But you can see Stan One as well. He's scouting his angles, trying to shut down the Florida Mayhem, trying to go through this choke. And this is a good rotation from the Florida Mayhem, actually. You can utilize this May wall, comes down, good immortality field on Yonbong here as well, making sure to keep his members alive. But the Florida Mayhem, they're just too good applying this pressure. Stand One goes down, Faith goes down. And from here on out, this should be Florida Mayhem's fight. Unless I'm 37 once more, able to conjure something up.
Oh, Gargoyle just couldn't get around the corner, and I'm37 lasered him down through the Amp Matrix, as you were saying. Florida looked like they had a massive advantage there. The pathing was good to be able to take down the turret, and then it was Slime with a boop to be able to push people outside of the Immortality field. I'm wondering whether Boston are going to go for a re-engage here. You can give up 2 ticks and try to come back in.
Absolutely, they should. Florida Mayhem, they have the ultimates, but if you can get some of these ultimates out, that's good already. I'm 37 going to use this High Noon. Doesn't really get anything, neither does BQB, but the Florida Mayhem, they're forced to invest ultimates here out. Self-destruct comes out from Punk, doesn't really secure anything but positioning on the point. Yaki drops the Blizzard as well. And now, the Florida Mayhem, they look to accelerate the tempo on this fight. They look to be the ones securing point A. But the most crucial thing being here, you had to use the Blizzard. You had to use the Deadeye and an Amplification Matrix. So you have 3 ultimates, but is that going to be enough to push early here on point B and try to get an early good time bank?
Normally, Gargoyle was using his ultimate to set up BQB or Yaki with the Blizzard or the Deadeye, so now they don't really have that tool available. They're gonna march in, though. This is a speed boost instantly onto the point. They're having to back off a little bit from the rally. They have forced out Rally and the Torbjorn ult really early on, though, without taking any casualties.
And these are the disengagements we saw from Florida Mayhem and King's Row as well. They know that the Boston Uprising, they're going to be the aggressor, and they're going to utilize these ultimates, try to get some value out of the Torbjorn and the McCree. But the Florida Mayhem playing the Sigma and the Lucio, they're happy to just disengage, and now they get to pick the fight on their terms. They have an Earth Shatter, they have a Sound Barrier, or they're going to look to go up their tempo here. Amplification Matrix comes up from Gangnam Jin. Big Shatter from Stand 1, locks down 2, but Gangnam Jin as well, equalizing things with BQB.
That was a really nice play from the Boston Uprising. Again, the coordination with all of these CC abilities is just excellent from them. It's so much above and beyond what we've seen from this organization, honestly, in the past. If you're looking at Boston Uprising playing this well, you have to go back through the annals of time. I mean, you are going back to 2018 if you want to think about Boston Uprising fans getting this level of success. They're looking in this match to try and push to 500 and maybe start to get into the top of the table. And it's off the back of some of these new pickups that they've got this year. They're looking very good, and they're trying to whittle down this time back further.
Absolutely, and now we have the Florida Mayhem trying to go for a bit of a weird flank here. Are you going to take? No, don't go for that flank. Sideshow does that. You don't have to. Florida Mayhem now pushing up with BQB. High Noon comes out. Are you going to find anything? You do like just getting the space here, and BQB is going to continue this flank out. Yaki has the Blizzard. Good May wall from Yaki as well, locking away I'm37. Doesn't really secure any fights whatsoever. And this is Florida Mayhem now. They're taking the positioning on the point. This is great ultimate usage just to find a positional advantage here against Boston.
That ult economy does seem to be excellent. Not just the economy, but how they actually utilize them. I'm37, though, with another hero play. Finds a cross-map headshot. As Valentine finds another. Both DPS players for the Boston Uprising taking out their counterparts in a desperate attempt to hang on. Punk gets back into his mech, and Stamwon has a shatter. Faith with a couple of kills as well, just cleaning up house. And that was it. The hero plays came from Valentine and I'm37 there to be able to take down BQB and Yaki. And there's nothing that Florida could do.
And I mean, this is typically what we see from the Florida Mayhem, right? When we talk about the Florida Mayhem, it's all about the BQB, Yaki coming in clutch to secure these man advantages and flip these fights around. But instead it's Valentine and I'm37. So even though Florida Mayhem, they secured so much good space onto that point, utilized their ultimates well, but the Boston Uprising able to find 2 picks, especially on assault maps. That's going to be such a big deal. So the Florida Mayhem now looking to get...
There it is again!
37! Again on the flank!
BQB was going for a flank, trying to get value out of the Deadeye, possibly looking to combine it with a Shatter or something of the like. But BQB, he isn't going to be able to get one up over I'm37. You have to wake up pretty early in the morning to get that done. That's a former commissioner of the Overwatch League you're looking at right there.
He's really coming in clutch for the Boston Uprising here. I mean, you can keep talking about the Florida Mayhem's ultimates, but is it really going to matter if Valentine and I'm37 are playing like this? Boston Uprising, they're not just playing this slower composition and, you know, utilizing their ultimates well, their abilities, but they're actually going for these hero plays as well that really turn out to be the thing that makes the difference in these long team fights.
And now we see Florida moving Gargoyle over to the D.Va, so they lose the win condition of getting a big Gravitic Flux into a Blizzard, which would have been amazing for them. Stan1 was looking, I think, for a Fire Strike through that Amp Matrix. Didn't necessarily spot a target as the rest of Florida, they kite it out. And Gangnam Jin's Amp Matrix gets walled off as well. There's Ethan! He eats the blizzard. What an incredible play. He's been so good for that all day long and yesterday. What a beast. You can see now why he's the only player that's coming in from Australia, but also the player that's come in to replace Gibulchi now recently. He was being subbed out fairly consistently, and now he's found his place, earned his place back into this roster.
Absolutely. What an incredible story for Punk as well. I mean, came into the league and it was tough on the Boston Uprising last year, and now getting a shot this year again, and they picked up Gibulchi in that off-tank role. And everyone talking about Punk, you know, how is he going to fit into this team? Are they going to an all-Korean lineup? Well, Punk is showing he's here to stay with plays like this.
Yeah, that was a monumental one, and now as the time ticks down, who's actually going to be able to touch the objective? It's Gargoyle. Both Gargoyle and Slime go for an attempt. OG lays down a shadow, doesn't really catch too much. Gargoyle self-destruct, can it find anybody? Punk, he ends up getting demeched as a result. And Valentine, he's in the middle of it, ends up getting flashbanged as he comes out of his cryo heal. I'm 37 and... oh, that's stand 1 actually, sorry, and OG collapsing in a pile on the point. Have Florida Mayhem actually done this? The momentum just incredible for them as BQB picks people off left, right, and center. What is that from the Florida Mayhem? Why was that not an option earlier?
I don't even understand. I mean, this match is incredible, Sideshow. It feels like both teams are only capable of securing points while they're in overtime. It doesn't matter how the maps are going. It doesn't matter how the team fights unfold. As long as it's in overtime, you can get the cap. I mean, that's a phenomenal engage by the Florida Mayhem, and they're keeping this series alive. You know, if they want to end up winning this match, it comes down to this final minute on Voska Industries. Boston Uprising, they have 8 more seconds to go. Not really going to be the difference maker. But the Florida Mayhem here, they have to be more decisive on this attack. They have to be more decisive. You can't get picked early. And you really have to play around Yaki's Maywalls here to secure the advantage as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'm interested in the swap from Gargoyle, moving from Sigma over to the D.Va. It does inject some pace into their composition, and I feel like that's been helpful for them. Slowing it down and relying on ults was good enough on King's Row, but on Volskaya, it felt like they were just getting out-tempoed by Boston until they made that swap. I'm wondering whether he's going to stay on it for this attack. What do you think?
I mean, I'm not too sure about this D.Va swap, to be honest with you. I quite liked the Sigma because it played into the engagement and disengagement that Florida Mayhem had it going for themselves. I also think that the Gravitic Fluxes, you can get value from them, but Gargoyle, he's proven himself on the D.Va that he's a phenomenal off-tank player. So if he wants to go for the D.Va, all right, show me what you got. Time to make the hero plays.
No time like the present. 45 seconds for Florida. Pure mirror match for both of these teams. And there aren't really going to be many ultimates. There it is. Wall from both sides. Defensive from Yaki. Flashbang traded for both McCrees. Doesn't look like anyone's going to be able to be isolated there. OG taking a bit of damage, as does Valentine. And the Boston Uprising, they're backing off. The Florida Mayhem have muscled their way through, but there's only 30 seconds left, and OG, he mustn't die!
No.
But he does! It's the first pick once more, not only on the Winston, but now on the Reinhardt, just overstepping himself slightly there as they desperately try and move towards the point.
And the Florida Mayhem, they're just fleeing. They're just fleeing from the fight, realizing that their main tank goes down. That's a huge disadvantage. But they end up getting staggered. Both Yaki and BQB are going to be late to the fight now. OG swaps over to the Wrecking Ball, trying to get a final touch onto this point. And he's going to be able to do that. But who's going to win this fight for Florida Mayhem? Gangnam Jin has an amplification matrix. Is that going to be it?
Oh, and there's the boop.
Oh,
There's
what a
the
boop.
He denies Gargoyle as he goes to the objective. Wow. Really well played by Boston. They had a Maywall to stop people touching. Then they had a Deadeye through an Amp Matrix to stop people touching as well. And then a final boop towards the end. That was
so well done.
Nasty stuff. Really nicely done by the Boston Uprising. But again, Florida Mayhem fans are going to be crying out because it always feels like they leave it too tight when it comes down to those final clutch moments. They only allocate one person that has to touch. And if he ends up getting stopped, then the objective of the entire game falls to pieces, it feels.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough for the Florida Mayhem. You know, you thought you had a chance to stay alive in this series, but now they have to go for a full hold. We saw one on King's Row. You know, it's possible. As we see a replay here from Faith on that Lucio. Nice boop there onto Gargoyle. But I still kind of feel like it's unacceptable for OG not to get on that point. You're playing the Wrecking Ball. You're the most mobile hero on the map. And, you know, yes, the Boston Uprising, they play well. They make sure that OG can't get on these flanks and touch the point. But I feel like it's a Wrecking Ball. In some capacity, you have to be able to touch that point sooner.
Okay. Well, for the present, though, you've got to put it out your mind. Florida are running the defense here with a similar composition than, as to what they ran on attack. The Mei, the McCree, Lucio and Bap on the back lines. Boston, I think, are just going to scout this out. They're looking to see probably where the BQB was running the Symmetra there with that Sonic Arrow. And now Boston are going to swap. They're really confident in the mirror. Is I'm37 going to stay on Symmetra? They're taking their time right now. He is going to stay on Sim.
Are they going to up the tempo?
Go in here. Well, here they go. They charge forward. Symmetra teleport up to the high ground. They left Faith behind for a little moment, but he only takes a tiny chunk of damage. They've immediately navigated that first choke point, though, and it's a very defensive wall by Yaki. Punk taking a bit of damage. Gargoyle frozen up. It's again so much damage onto OG. He is the first player to fall once more. The main tank from the Florida Mayhem, a new acquisition for this season, but the integration has been painful at this point. And Boston Uprising, with 20 seconds left, they didn't even need their entire time bank. They're storming ahead, taking that first tick, and sweeping the Boston Uprising. They sweep the Florida Mayhem. They get them out of there. It's a 3-0, including a draw. And what a disastrous loss for Florida. That slips them further into a 5-match loss streak.
That's tough. I mean, that's tough if you're the Florida Mayhem. And again, we're emphasizing on the Florida Mayhem here because they're built up to be one of these best teams in the league, you know? Being able to compete with the elite teams for these knockout matches. But instead, it's the Boston Uprising. And I mean, you gotta give credit where credit is due. This is a team that has been struggling these last couple of years, now rejuvenated with a new lineup in place, adding several players. And this might be the stage where the Boston Uprising really come alive. Stand 1 had a great performance on the Reinhardt, Valentine as well, playing that Torbjorn. I feel like the Boston Uprising, apart from just individually impressing us here in this match today, it was that team play and that synergy that really made sure that they got the edge over the Florida Mayhem. And if you're a Boston Uprising fans, that's a great indicative of the rest of the Summer Showdown. And I'm excited for the Boston Uprising fans to see the rest of these matches.
Yeah, it totally is. Now, they are a team that relies a lot on Reinhardt, but as we see the meta develop, we don't really know what's going to end up stronger. So if that prevails, Boston are looking like a good team. Jonathan, let me run you through their next matches coming up as well. If we're talking about Summer Showdown aspirations, they've got the Houston Outlaws and the Atlanta Reign. Now, normally you would consider them the underdogs, I think, in both of those matches. But with this win today, does that change things for you?
I mean, you have to consider the opponent teams as well. If you're the Boston Uprising, you're playing against the Houston Outlaws, and you're playing against the Atlanta Reign. Those are both teams that like to play this slower Reinhardt composition. So I think those matches are going to be really exciting for me, because that's when we see how good the Boston Uprising are, playing against similar mirror compositions. I don't expect the Atlanta Reign to stick with this Pelican Echo and the Gator on Winston for too long. I think it's going to be Boston Uprising having a go at other Reinhardt teams, and that's when we'll really see how good they are.
Well, speaking of Reinhardt, your player of the match presented by Xfinity is the one and only Stan 1, coming in from the Shanghai Dragons to be able to win it here for the Boston Uprising. Jonathan, you wanted this guy to deserve his credit towards the end, or get his credit towards the end. What impressed you so much about Stan 1's play today?
I mean, I think he just has a really solid Reinhardt. Of course, being able to lead his team that likes to play this Reinhardt composition and play a bit slower. But he's able to hit these big Earth Shatters consistently. It started on Nepal, and that's where he secured a lot of these picks early on. But on both Sky Industries, Junkertown, he kept it going, shutting down OG. And there was a little bit of MTD there, Sideshow. You know, I'm not gonna lie, there was a little bit of MTD. Sure. And as we take a look at the stats, now the stats, I don't want to hone in on too much. Yes, he gets player of the match. Fantastic performance by him. But you look at this and you see final blows, 5.4 per 10 minutes. Earth Shatter kills, 1.6. Well, he was the front line. He was the one holding down the fort for the Boston Uprising. So you can see average time alive. That's the important statistic I'm looking out for. If you are a Reinhardt and you are able to stay alive for 1 minute 41 seconds, that means that you're in some capacity, you know, having implication onto your team fights, how the team is doing. And the Boston Uprising, they were able to keep Stand 1 alive. He was able to secure the big Earth Shatters when it was needed from him and really help his team out. So big credit to Stand 1 for a great Reinhardt performance.
Yeah, and he's part of a really good tank line that's been developing now for the Boston Uprising. Him and Punk have just been fantastic in both of the previous games that they've played this week. Electric game there. The 3-0 was still incredible for the win for the Boston Uprising over the Florida Mayhem. Love to see it. We'll be back after the break where I change out my casting partner because,
What?
no offense, Jonathan, but I want to keep it fresh. So, listen,
Sorry.
I'll break it to him gently in just a moment, but I had to let you guys know before we love you and leave you. Make sure you catch us after the break, though. We've got a banger of a match coming up as well.
Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
Welcome to Game Break presented by Cheez-It Cruise. We're joined now by Valentine from Boston Uprising. Valentine, congratulations on the win today. 발렌타인 선수 일단 오늘 승리 너무나도 축하드리고요. 안녕하세요. 어떠신가요 지금 기분?
안녕하세요. 조금은 생각보단 힘들었지 않았나라고 생각을 해요 오늘 경기.
You know, I think it's safe to say this match was a little bit more difficult than I thought it would have been. So are you saying that you thought that this match was going to be an easy win for the Boston Uprising? 지금 방금 말씀하신 거 들어보면은 이번 경기 그러면 원래 들어오면서는 조금 굉장히 쉽게 이길 거라고 예상을 하셨나요, 그러면?
네, 조금 진짜 좀 쉬울 것 같다라고 생각을 한 게 어제 플로리다 경기를 봤는데 이제 윈선 조합을 쓰더라고요. 근데 저희가 그거를 굉장히 대처를 잘한다고 생각을 하기 때문에 오늘 경기는 좀 무난하게 이기겠다라고 생각을 했어요.
Alright, so yeah, I actually did, you know, think that this match was going to be an easy win for our team, Boston Uprising. Probably because, you know, we watched Mayhem's game yesterday, and they were usually running the Winston composition, and we're really good at sort of fighting that off. So coming into the match, we thought it was going to be an easy win, and that was my reason. All right, let's just jump right into the question. You know, obviously with your today's win, you know, I feel like your Torbjorn play was a huge factor for the win against the Mayhem. Do you believe Torbjorn is sort of a really good pick for the current meta, or was that something just for the Mayhem? 일단 첫 번째 질문은 이제 당연히 오늘 발렌타인 선수의 토르비온에 대해서 좀 얘기를 안 할 수가 없는데요. 오늘 굉장히 좀 큰 역할을 했다고 제가 봅니다. 그 토르비온 픽이 어떻게 보면 이제 발렌타인 선수가 보시기에는 좀 이번 메타에 굉장히 좀 좋은 영웅이라서 픽을 하신 건지, 아니면은 오늘 메이햄과의 경기를 위해서, 그것만을 위해서 좀 이렇게 준비를 하신 건지, 어떤 건가요?
다른 팀도 다 똑같이 생각할 거라고 생각하는데 어제 희수 선수 인터뷰에서 공격적인 성향이랑 수비적인 성향이 나타날 것이다라고 얘기를 했는데 저희가 토르비온을 쓴 이유는 이제 수비적인 성향으로 가겠다고 컨셉을 잡았기 때문에 토르비온을 썼고 다른 팀도 충분히 토르비온을 쓸 수 있다고 생각을 해요.
Alright, so I think all the other teams will probably answer the same or have the same sort of thought in mind for this question. Just like Hisu said in yesterday's post-match interview, a lot of teams are either going to be very offensive or go for the offensive playstyle or go for the defensive playstyle, like Hisu mentioned yesterday in the post-match interview. And for us, for the Boston Uprising, for today, we sort of went with the defensive style, sort of, you know, letting the other team initiate first and then we would sort of counterattack after their initiation. So that is why we went for the Torbjorn pick, as because that was sort of the defensive play style was what we were going for today's match against the Florida Mayhem. All right, now my second question for you is Punk, not Punk, I'm sorry, Valentine. Punk actually yesterday in his post-match interview, he also said that you know, Mayhem looked very shaky coming into today's match. So what were some of the weaknesses that you saw in Mayhem, and how did you guys prepare for today's match? 자, 두 번째 질문은 어제 펑크 선수가, 또 같은 팀에 계신 펑크 선수도 좀 이런 말씀을 하셨는데요, 인터뷰에서 메이햄이 그렇게 너무 이렇게 세지만은 지금은 살짝은 좀 힘들어하는 모습을 보이는 것 같다라고 말씀하셨는데, 발렌타인 선수가 보시기에는 그러면은 좀 이제 메이햄의 약점이 있다면 뭐가 있을까요? 그리고 또 오늘 경기에 들어오면서 그 약점을 써서 좀 어떻게 준비를 하셨는지.
약점이라고 하기보단 이제 메이엠의 강점은 야키의 트레이서라고 생각을 해요. 근데 그거를 중심으로 이제 플로리다는 이제 야키의 트레이서만 막으면 게임이 쉽겠다라고 생각을 해서 경기 전에 어떻게 야키를 막을지만 생각을 했던 것 같아요.
Alright, so I don't really know about the weakness for Florida Mayhem, but definitely they do have a very strong point. It is, of course, Yaki's Tracer. That is their strongest. That is definitely their strength. So coming into today's match against the Florida Mayhem, we sort of had that in mind, and our sort of goal was to sort of block or actually prevent Yaki to, you know, sort of go crazy on the Tracer, and that was sort of our game plan coming into today's match. Alright. Valentine, that is it for the interview. Thank you so much. 발렌타인 선수 인터뷰해 주셔서 너무 감사하고요. 오늘 승리 다시 한 번 더 축하드립니다.
네, 감사합니다.
Alright, thank you so much. Let's head back to the desk.
Thank you so much, guys. A great insight here from Valentine. Congratulations to the Boston Uprising. And I'm absolutely thrilled to now talk about the match which just happened. Some people here on the desk are more excited about it than others. That said, Reinforce, phenomenal job at the casting. I really enjoyed it. That was great. So I think the first time I actually hear you like full-on casting.
I feel like I went through a tumble dryer. Now you're gonna hold this pick against me. I mean,
oh yeah.
I mean, just give me a break, all right?
Oh, I won't. I'm sorry. I can't do that, unfortunately, because I have about 20 graphics prepared, which will indicate that you were wrong and Costa and I were right. So Costa, I'm going to hand it over to you. We saw some top-tier tour play. We saw a draw on King's Row, extremely close match on Junkertown. Overall, it was a great series to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think that interview by Danny just there really highlighted it very well from Valentine of they came in with a very good game plan. They wanted to play the slower style. We knew that the Mayhem were going to come in with this Winston, with this trying to force Yaki onto that Tracer, and Boston just pumped the brakes on that. They said, we're going to play a style which makes it impossible for you to do that. And the Florida Mayhem tried everything against it. They tried the brawl, they tried to force the Winston, they tried everything. But at the end of the day, they couldn't get anything to really stick. They had some success. It was very competitive and back and forth, as you said. But OG and I think Yaki really struggled to come alive, and they are the two important factors, I think, for this Florida Mayhem team. So disappointing for Florida Mayhem. I think they're 1-5 in their last 6 matches, so far away from what we saw from them in the May Melee. But once again, Boston Uprising looking so good, trying to make a name for themselves, maybe on the warpath to make it to Hawaii. So Boston fans are rejoicing right now. It's been a hard road.
Absolutely. I mean, I've talked about this match enough, and I got the pred wrong. But if there's any delight in this matchup, it has to be Valentine having a fantastic Torbjorn game as well as stand 1 on that Reinhardt. Yep. I mean, that was a duo that really stood out for me. And I'm 30-7 as well. I talked about this on the cast with Sideshow, just being able to find these picks. Certainly made a name for himself on Volskaya Industries as well, where you're playing the defense on point B of Volskaya. And if you're able to find 2